All right, good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this governing board member of the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District board meeting to order. The date is April 15th. The time is 9:01 a.m. Good morning and welcome to our meeting of the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control. We have board members participating in person and at our office in Fresno, Bakersfield, and Modesto. We will do our best to facilitate a smooth meeting with public participation via Zoom and webcast. Before we begin, here are some important guidelines and general instructions for the meeting. Please silence your other communication devices such as your cell phone. During the meeting, all public participants will be placed on mute by the host. Public members will not be able to mute or unmute manually. Audio for members of the public will be unmuted once they are recognized to make the public comment. After each agenda item, the chair will announce a public comment. The clerk will recognize any public attendee who has indicated they wish to speak. With that, move on to number 2, which is a roll call.
Okay, good morning. Mr. Couch. Ms. Escutia Brayton. Here. Ms. Lewis.
Here.
Mr. McCauley.
Here.
Mr. Mendez.
Here.
Dr. Pacheco Warner. Here. Mr. Pereira. Mr. Preciado.
Here.
Mr. Reyna. Mr. Rickman. Mr. Robinson.
Here.
Dr. Sheriff. Ms. Shuklian.
Here.
Ms. Wynn. Here. Mr. Chiesa.
I am here.
Through the chair, we have quorum.
It's fantastic. If everyone could please stand, I'm going to ask Dr. Pacheco Warner if you'd lead us in the pledge, please.
Ready? Salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Doctor. Okay, item 4 is approval of the consent calendars. There are items 16 through 23 in the board packet. Is there any board members that have any comments or would like to pull any of them? Seeing none, any public comment?
Do we have any public comment on the consent calendar in Bakersfield?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Are there any public comments on the consent calendar in Modesto?
Public comments from Modesto.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment on this item? Seeing none and no online comments.
Thank you. I'll bring it back to the board for
Motion to approve.
we have a motion and a second. Chucklin? All those, no, I'm sorry.
Wrong meeting.
Okay, Ms. Escutia Brayton.
Can't hear you.
Are we voting?
Yes.
Yes.
For the consent calendar?
Thank you. Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. McCauley?
Yes.
Mr. Mendez?
Yes.
Dr. Pacheco Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Preciado?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Dr. Sheriff?
Here, yes.
Thank you. Ms. Shuklian?
Aye.
Ms. Wynn?
Yes.
Mr. Chiesa?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. On to item 5, which is public comment period. It's time that's made available for comments to the public on matters within the board's jurisdiction. Agenda items 8 through 11 will each have individual public comment periods, and it is requested that comments on those items be made at that time. Attention is called to the fact that the board is prohibited by law from taking action on matters discussed that are not on the agenda. Do we have any public comment?
Okay, Modesto, do you have any members of the public that would like to make a comment at this time?
No public comment in Modesto.
Thank you. Bakersfield, do you have any members of the public that would like to comment?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment? Seeing no members of the public in person and none online. No online comments today.
I think I've been on this board 4 years and that's a first. Would you agree? Nothing wrong with that. Okay, so on to item 6. It's the star recognition. Always exciting. We got the new chairs and then we pushed the old chairs down there to staff.
So
They can't-
generous, thank you.
Good morning, Shanika Dixon, Director of Personnel. I'm glad to be here today. As you're aware, the recognition of employees' contributions is an essential component of the district STAR work culture. Today, we would like to formally recognize those individuals who have reached a service milestone in the first quarter of 2024. So today, we have individuals in both Fresno and the Bakersfield office who will be recognized. We appreciate all of their contributions, their dedication and commitment, service to the district over the years. If they are present, we ask that they stand and remain standing until all names have been read. So we will start in Fresno today. With 5 years of service, Ryan Domanowski, Supervising Air Quality Specialist. Jocelyn Mejia Salamantes, Senior Air Quality Specialist. Kevin Ing, Senior Air Quality Specialist. Will Worsley, Supervising Air Quality Specialist. And reaching 10 years of service, Lawrence Castaneda, Maintenance Worker. 15 years of service, Olin Bailey, Air Quality Instrument Technician. Gurpreet Brar, Air Quality Engineer. Yvette Ciotti, Air Quality Assistant. Christina Padilla, Staff Technician. And we have one employee in Bakersfield with 15 years of service, Ubaldo Rodriguez, Air Quality Assistant. Bakersfield, are you there?
Yes, we're here.
All right. Well, congratulations to you all, and thank you so much for your service to the district. We appreciate all that you do. Thank you.
I was trying to be as quick as I could, but I know that was more than 100 years of service. I stopped at 100. Thank you all.
I may be late for roll call, but I don't want to miss that one. Thank you.
Great. Always a great way to start the meeting. On to item 7, which is a report on the district citizen, we're gonna go to Modesto. Actually, Ben Cantu is in the Modesto office, and he's going to give the report on the district's Citizen Advisory Committee activities. Ben, are you there?
Yes.
Here he comes. Good morning.
Yes, I am. Good morning. Ben Cantu here in Modesto. I am the chairperson, I believe, and I say believe because I've only been on this committee for a short period of time. At our meetings, we've had update reports on a number of items, and I'm not going to go through each one of them. I tend to be to the point and short on my presentations. I am from the city of Manteca. I have lived in the valley here all my life, most of it in Manteca. And I would like to say that I think the board, since its inception, has done a great job in cleaning up the air and the atmosphere. I can remember as a teenager waking up in the morning and the sky was shades of brown. And driving to LA and coming down the other side of the grapevine and not being able to breathe. So I think you've done a great job. And as a member of this committee, I would hope that I can provide some justice to what you have done in the past and in the future. One thing I really want to report is that in our last couple of meetings, members of our group have expressed concern about not being consulted as part of the creation and process of certain regulations regarding transportation, particularly truck transportation. We have members on the board that have business operations and represent businesses that had to do with trucks and farming and so on. And their concern is basically that there's not much communication coming back when concerns are expressed by committee members. Now, I've been on this board for a little over a year, I believe, and I've expressed my concerns a number of times, and staff has gone out of its way to respond to me either during the meeting or after the meeting. But the one concern that was expressed at the last meeting had to do with the conversion of diesel gasoline trucks to electric power, particularly Long Beach, and the fact that at this point there's a very small fraction of the total number of trucks operating out of that location that have actually been converted, and the timeline for implementation of the rules and regulations at that time were upon us. So I guess my question is, what's going on? We would like to be kept abreast of what's going on and more responses to our questions in a faster manner. And I won't go through all the reports, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Mr. Chair.
Ken. Appreciate that.
Just a quick word. This is Samir. Good to see you, Chair Cantu. You are indeed the chair, and really appreciate you. I just wanted to thank you for being here and the work that you do. It is a volunteer committee, to remind the board about the CAC. So they do take a lot of their own time to basically, look at these issues and weigh in, provide input. So we definitely appreciate, the work that they do very much. I wanted to confirm actually on that last issue that Chair Cantu raised, that at the next meeting, we do intend on actually having the executive officer of CARB actually be there directly actually to speak to some of the issues that have been raised here for some time by the CAC. So I do think at that next meeting, there's going to be some engagement on some of the concerns that were just raised by the chair, just to give you a little bit more of an update on that specific issue that was raised. And we look forward to working with Chair Cantu on these issues as we move forward with various air quality work that's happening. So just wanted to thank the chair for being here and for the work that they do.
Thank you. Member Escutia Braden.
Thank you, Chair Chiesa. And thank you, Mr. Cantu, for your service and your volunteering. You don't have to do this, but because you care about your community in the Valley, you do, and you speak well in representing your group. Thank you. How many members does your group make up? How many people are in the group?
To be honest with you, I don't know. I see a few on the two screens, and I know in my group here in Modesto, there's 6 or 7 of us.
Okay, all right. And do you all notify the district staff or invite them to when you do meet?
They are part of the meeting.
Yeah, they are part of the meeting. Okay,
Right.
So that's good. So you have a representative there that's able to engage in the conversation and upfront answer any questions the group might have?
Yes, we
Okay.
have representatives from different departments, I guess,
Wonderful.
and they do, as part of their reports and updates, respond to questions that we have.
Excellent.
But obviously, we're asking questions that at times they cannot answer, and the answer would have to come from above their level. And that's been our concern, is that we're asking technical questions because a lot of the members have knowledge and awareness and experience in certain areas. So technical questions are being asked, but staff cannot necessarily answer those questions.
At the time.
Yeah.
So.
Mr. Chair, if I could, I'm sorry, weigh in a little bit on that, just to clarify. So I generally actually attend every one of those meetings. But I think what the chair is referring to is one of those issues specific to some of the state regulations and having, the appropriate people there to basically engage. That's been an ongoing discussion. But I just want to clarify, we actually host meetings in this room here, the same room, and we have a number of staff who help support and do our best to try to, facilitate those discussions. A lot of great questions come up, and just wanted to clarify a little bit just between the different roles of what CARB does, what we do, and sort of how we try to bring, as much of that resource also to the meetings to try to help address some of the concerns that do come up.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you, Samir.
Dr.
And
Pacheco.
thank you, Mr. Cantu, again for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Dr. Pacheco Warner.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Cantu. So as the Air Resources Board representative here on this board, which is the body that carries all of the decision making that you have you've raised here, and it sounds like members of your committee have raised. I did want to let you know that obviously Samir has worked very hard to get the executive officer at your next meeting, and I think that will be a really good next step. And in addition, we are looking for additional engagement opportunities with the deputy executive officers that are in charge of those specific regulations that you have, that the committee has raised questions about, to come to the Valley and do a specific meeting with you all, with obviously interested stakeholders, so we can get further clarity on what is happening and what is on hold and what is on, what are their extensions on and everything. So please know that we are working to get more engagement here in the Valley around those rules so that everyone can get more clarity.
Thank you.
Thank you much. Any other comments? Seeing no other comments, thank you, Mr. Cantu. Appreciate you
Thank
coming in
you.
and giving that report.
Mr. Chair, I will.
Yes.
Samir, did CARB ever exercise any flexibility with, what was it, those 323,000 vehicles that were supposed to be taken offline?
So there are a number of different rules that are out there, right? There's I'll try to give you kind of a high level response because it does get a little bit into the weeds. There's the truck and bus regulation that was adopted back in the 2000s. That had a deadline of January 2023, and all along the way, there's been a number of different compliance assistance efforts, and the deadline has come, and there are some concerns still about the because that rule is connected also to registration processes through SB1, and so one of the big concerns that I think that has come up has been what has happened to small truck fleets that maybe fell out of compliance with that rule and their ability to still maintain registration. So that's one big question. There's also a port-related regulation that requires, it's very nuanced, but there's all kinds of requirements associated with zero emissions trucks going into the port. There's existing fleets, there's new trucks, and basically and that's part of what Dr. Pacheco Warner was also referring to is what are those requirements? There's been some sort of extensions provided. There's it's all happening kind of right now, so that's another set of issues. Then there's also another rule called Advanced Clean Fleets, which also is staged out over into the coming years, and that has it's questions and basically needs some compliance, engagement, and assistance as well. And I think there's another rule, which is the omnibus new truck standard rule, which also has its own set of complexities and issues. So as you can imagine, between all these different layers of regulation, there's been quite a few questions about how they all work together. And we have gotten commitments, from CARB, that they do want to engage and continue to try to answer questions and take into account, basically listen and see what's going on, on the ground. And that's the engagement that, basically is hopefully going to start happening, again, in earnest, maybe some different approaches, hopefully here in the near future. So I don't know if that fully answers your question, but there are concerns kind of across many of those different levels.
Okay.
Through the chair, I just wanted to recognize that Councilmember Reyna has also joined the meeting in Bakersfield.
Thank you very much. Okay, nothing else? No public action. Now we're going to move on to item 8, review and provide comments on the 2023 annual report to the community. Samir and Jamie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the recognizing Jamie, who I do want to introduce here as the main person who's been coordinating what once again is a really positive, comprehensive, well-written reports on the various activities that the Air District has been involved in over this past year. And just to remind the board, in contrast to some of the very technical information that comes to the board, there's even an item or two on the agenda today that I would say are pretty technical in nature. What we try to do with this report, in the spirit of the guiding principle that we have here, the core value of public accountability and transparency, is put together a more comprehensible and again comprehensive accounting of different things that are going on with respect to San Joaquin Valley and the clean air journey that we're on here. And so basically there's an opportunity here in front of the board and the public to go over the draft, and I'll just give you a very quick version of what's in the report. Once we basically finish this discussion and take into account any ideas that may come up here during the discussion, we then publish and finalize the report. We make it available on our webpage. We can also have printed copies. We translate it into Spanish, which was a great idea a couple of years ago by Mayor Preciado here on the board. And so it is available in multiple languages, and we then distribute it every year to individuals that are interested, agencies, organizations, businesses throughout the Valley. It's a great tool for sharing the work that's going on and really just advocating on behalf of the Valley's ongoing efforts, because we do have a lot of work to look forward to here and continue on this journey. And this report really helps provide that level of information to really anybody who's interested in what's going on. So if you hopefully you have access to this here in front of you, I'm going to flip through the report very quickly and just give you the very short version of what's in here. And we'll start with the cover sheet. I think once again is a beautiful image of the Valley, and we do try to we have access to we have great staff here who can provide really good photos of so once again another wonderful image on the front cover. And then a message from, basically from me and trying to channel essentially what we here at the Air Board, your direction, your guidance, what we're basically, what we saw last year and what we're focusing on in the coming year. Positive message around the work. I am happy to report overall that this last year, we actually saw record clean air improvement in the San Joaquin Valley. And so you'll see that theme embedded in different parts of this report. The work that we are doing, we're partnering with the state and all of our agriculture, businesses, public agencies, residents is paid off. We're seeing improvements in PM 2.5, notable improvements in PM 2.5. Ozone is also improving, and all that's resulting in public health benefits. So definitely want to highlight that work. And the board is also recognized there on page 5, and I'll just keep moving quickly through the report here. I'm on page 6. Lay out the district's mission and vision, our basic budget information, what our core values are. And as you see there at the very top, one of those core values is open and transparent public process. These are things that we talk about very often here, and want to remind the public about what the agency really is all about. On page 8, we go through the importance right out the gate of cleaner air equals better health. I mean, we're a public health agency, and the reason that we work hard on reducing air pollution is to improve the quality of lives for the residents here of the Valley. We, on page 9, summarize the benefits that we're seeing because of the improvements to air quality. There's a really interesting graphic at the bottom of page 9 that highlights basically how many days used to meet or go over the various standards back in 2002, about 20 years ago. And you could see, many of the days, about 47% were above the standards at that time, now to where you're seeing the vast majority of days are actually below standards. Although that 10% still means that we have significant challenge with what we have left to do. Then pages 10 and 11 really focus on some really cool work that happened this last year in hitting some major milestones. We had an interagency, really important recognition last year with EPA, CARB, the USDA, NRCS, highlighting the major milestone that we reached in reducing air pollution from the agricultural equipment sector. Hundreds of millions of dollars have gone towards replacing equipment in partnership with agriculture, who've also been putting in the other half of that investment. So we recognize it on page 10. And then on page 11, some of the other ongoing work, you can see the numbers down there. $1.6 billion invested in new ag equipment since 2015, which is just a mind-boggling, amount of clean air investment just in that sector alone. Almost 13,000 pieces of equipment reduced, and then the low dust harvester program and what's been happening there. The innovation is highlighted on page 11. On page 12 and 13, we go over the ag burn phase outs work that is major emphasis this last couple of years. The success that we've had in that, the various practices that we've supported. There's a graph on page 13 that really shows you that transition of basically what used to be burned and now what we're handling through other alternatives, kind of overlaid together to reflect that transition. A couple of important quotes here from the chair and one of the ag representatives about the partnership work that is going on in that space. Pages 14 and 15 go on to talk about the state farmer program has been one of the tools that we've used to really make a difference with reducing emissions in the agricultural sector. There's some state generated information on page 14 highlighting the success of this program in reducing not only criteria air pollutants, which are key to ozone and PM2.5, but also air toxic air pollutants, which are diesel particulate, and also greenhouse gas reductions. I mean, the program is win-win-win across the board on all these different aspects of it. And we highlight that on page 14, especially in a budget year like this, where we are still looking to take the farmer budget from basically zero to something. We're working very hard as a region to try to support that effort. So we're highlighting that program there. Page 15, a bit of information just about the complexity of dealing with air quality issues and how much collaboration is needed between the agencies, between us, CARB, and EPA to be able to meet the standards. So we try to explain that on page 15. And then we're going now a little bit more detailed, pages 16 and 17, into the metrics about air quality, the improvements that we've seen. 16 is an interesting graphic that basically overlays air quality and improvement, but also with the growth in vehicle miles traveled, population growth. We've seen the valley grow significantly over the years. And even over that same time frame, we've also been working to reduce air pollution in mass, right? Which is something that I think is remarkable actually when you really think about it, and just how much investment has gone into everything from the local sources, agriculture, the industrial sources, the mobile sources, the work the state does. It's really been across the board to be able to achieve that. Page 17 gets into the ozone metrics and just seeing, again, back in 2002, the column there represents where the ozone used to be relative to different ozone standards, which are the lines there. And you can see, well above. Like how do we meet the standard essentially was the question at that time. And we're basically there for the 97 standard and making significant progress towards the 2008 and 2015 standards. And again, the map graphical image there on the bottom of page 17, basically red and purple is high, and green and yellows and oranges are lower. You could just see that transition over the years across the San Joaquin Valley. Pages 18 and 19 are about PM2.5, and similarly, just kind of characterizing what the issue is. PM2.5 is very complicated. It's one of those topics that it really does take a minute to try to explain, because PM2.5 comes from different sources. It can actually be created in the atmosphere from different pollutants kind of coming together. It can be released directly sometimes, maybe a tailpipe, diesel particulate matter, or dust, has a component of dust as PM2.5. So basically all that together makes up 2.5, and as you see on page 19, for key pollutants like NOx, which is basically one of the two main contributors to PM 2.5, massive reductions in NOx emissions, which also helps with ozone. That's the first graphic, top left. And then you see top right, where the peaks used to be back in 2002, again, about 20 years ago, and where the peaks were last year. The valley-wide peak was actually well below the 15 microgram standard at 13.5, and almost half, actually, of what it used to be just 20 years ago. So significant reductions in PM 2.5. The graphics on the bottom of page 19 show in the winter months is a top set of pie charts, and the winter months are our key PM 2.5 season, is when we see the most PM 2.5. And then below that is across the entire year, how many days basically used to exceed the standard across different, those different time frames, and just the significant improvement basically from where we were in the past to where we are today. Pages 20 and 21 focus on the residential wood burning reduction efforts that the board has engaged in over the years. Page 20 really highlights the work that's going on there. You'll hear a more detailed report actually in the next board item on this last season on that. Page 21 highlights some of the newer work that's going on with electric heat pumps and how that has become an emerging, another alternative to residential wood burning. And so just highlighting that work, we have a higher grant amount available for that. There's also some federal funds available to help residents with converting to heat pumps. So that's something that the board has been weighing in on as well. Pages 22 and 23 get into the wildfire smoke issues. This has been a really big priority and concern. Fortunately, we haven't had as much of that here this last year, but every year, basically it's always up in front of us as a potential challenge. And certainly nationally has also become a major challenge with some of the impacts that we saw coming out of Canada and impacting other parts of the country. So we do, on page 22, lay out what we do as part of our strategy. Page 23 focuses on some of the newer work that's going on with the air purifiers and the cleaner centers that the board has approved, and some of the programs that are in place for that. Pages 24 and 25 hit on our work with schools and the partnerships, and actually a very unique partnership that has been highlighted. We actually have won an award for this, as you see Jamie up there with the president of APCA, national organization, air quality agencies, that actually awarded our Healthier Living Schools program as a best practice in air pollution control. And we're very proud of that. And that's spotlighted actually on page 25. And then going on to page 26, working with our communities, pages actually 26 and 27, highlighting some of the work that's going on in building partnerships with local community organizations, with residents, with local businesses on dealing with community concerns, moving forward with environmental justice priorities that the board has established. 26 covers an award that we received from EPA that you heard a little bit about at the last board meeting, $1 million that we're actually going to be launching here pretty soon in a couple of days, and you'll be seeing more information about that, along with CARB grants that will together be another round of free air purifiers for residents in the San Joaquin Valley. Page 27 highlights community engagement efforts that we're conducting. We spotlight, for example, the show and tell events that are happening up and down the valley on our vehicle repair and replacement program. These are very well attended. They're grassroots. They're generally held at maybe a pizza shop or other local venue where and residents are invited to sit down actually with our partners and with our staff and look at options for how to update their vehicles or repair their vehicles to cleaner options. Pages 28 and 29 continue the work with the community engagement efforts. Here on page 28, we profile the AB 617 work around urban greening and tree planting, which is one of the programs that has been funded under the community emission reduction plans that the board has adopted. And so Tree Fresno is basically highlighted here as one of the partners in that. And then on page 29, we have the funding stream called the Community Air Protection Program that, and you just see again, very large and impressive numbers around $300 million actually invested through that program to date. A lot of emissions reductions. You see a summary of some of the various types of projects that were funded in communities across the valley with that program, and that work continues into the future. Page 30 gets into the community air monitoring aspect of that community engagement work. We actually have really innovative tools that we worked with community partners to deploy to try to basically better understand concerns, what's happening in neighborhood. That data basically feeds back into processes. It's published, it's made available for all to see, and that work continues, and it's been very productive in helping communities and being engaged in our work here. Page 31 is a very important page actually, because this starts transitioning over into, yes, I wanted to bring, make sure everybody was really laser focused here. Thank you for that, Supervisor Shuklian. Appreciate that. So this page focuses on the major ongoing commitments and how we do against those commitments in delivering, with our various plans and rules that the board and other measures the board puts into place. So that table is very important down there, and it shows that we continue to meet and exceed our targets. Page 32 and 33 focus on the innovative regulatory work that we do. And there's just a graphic in here that shows you as a representative sort of graphical illustration of, in this case, for boilers and steam generators, where emissions used to be, say, in the 80s and 90s. And through various regulations that the board has put into place, basically about a 98% reduction or so in emissions through those various regulations. And we keep looking at this on an ongoing basis. Page 33 highlights over this past year, basically what the regulatory work was, various rules that were considered and adopted by the board, and some of the future work that's coming up as a report on that. Pages 34 and 35 get into advocacy efforts around funding. So page 34 summarizes some of the key achievements this last year in bringing state and federal funds to the San Joaquin Valley for air quality improvement work. Page 35 gets into some of the various initiatives that we've been targeting, both at the state level and federal level. So, and you hear quite a bit about that as we return to the board with various funding awards and updates on that. Pages 36 and 37 get into our various grant program activities. And as you can see here, there's a lot that goes on here, right? Between regulatory work and wildfires and everything else. So here we're talking about our nation-leading grant program, partnerships at every level across the valley, audits recently conducted by the state that validated the tremendous work that goes on here as really a partnership across the entire valley. Page 37 has figures on this last year, over $1.1 billion invested in grants, public-private funding. About $330 million in district grants was matched with $825 million in partner match for over $1 billion of investment. Just again, tremendous numbers. You could say over $1 billion this last year. You see the figures there. I won't go over all of them, but the important figures at the very bottom too, which are the tremendous emissions reductions that those programs are achieving. Pages 38 and 39 get into the some of the specific, and I would just say, some of the highlights. There's a lot to cover in a report like this, but highlighting the vehicle repair and replacement program on page 38, the firework alternative program here on page 39. Actually, there was here locally in Fresno a couple of events, the Vintage Days, as well as the Clovis Rodeo. I was actually driving home, it was yesterday, and I don't know, Supervisor Shuklian, if you noticed that or not, but if you look towards Clovis, I actually saw the drone show there at the rodeo, saw the flag and other things, and it was just a wonderful way of trying to look at just different ways of doing some of this, and it looks like they're well received, and we'll be reporting back on that program here as we move forward with that. So pages 40 and 41, highlighting the work with landscape equipment and basically the zero emissions program. We actually have a very significant program that is in high demand right now for commercial battery electric equipment. There are landscapers and schools and public agencies all basically going out there and trying this equipment out and basically reporting back to us how it's working. So that's moving forward. We have the resident-facing program as well. We highlight the rebates that are available for lawnmowers and other equipment on page 41. Pages 42 and 43 cover some of the innovative work that the board is doing with mobile sources. So page 42 covers the zero emissions opportunities, but also the challenges, right? This board has been really interested in engaging on how do we actually look at issues like the electric grid infrastructure challenges, the hydrogen, what role does that play? So we profile that work on page 42. On page 43, talk about, we proceed with some of the same story there, but also locomotive work and some of the partnership work that we did there for cleaner locomotives. Page 44 talks about one specific project in the Valley that, well, really more about the effort, but also the spotlighting the OK Produce project that the board heard several months ago. Page 45 highlights the third biggest award in the country and single biggest award in California under the Federal Highway Administration's program, the CFI program, for a $56 million electric truck charging network. Just really highlighting that project. Pages 46 and 47 highlight the Charge Up program, spotlight Modesto City Schools, who is doing a lot of innovative work in transitioning their fleet over to electric buses and are actually leading the nation in a lot of ways on that work. So we want to spotlight that there. Page 47 gets into the work that we do under the statewide electric transit and school bus program and our role in administering that on behalf of the entire state. And then we transition the report over into a little bit more about the science. Pages 48 and 49 get into the air monitoring network that we have here. 49 gets into the sources of emissions, and this is very up-to-date information on basically where the air pollution is coming from for some of the key pollutants that drive both ozone and PM 2.5. And then, you know, basically at the final sort of, I would say, chapter of this report, it gets into the internal aspects of the air district. Pages 50 and 51 really get into the administration, what we do here, you know, the IT work. We have the recognition that we received from the GFOA for our financial reporting, and the I think 10th year in a 10th year in a row that we won that award, and just kind of profiling that. Pages 52 and 53 talk about our permitting program. There's statistics in here, again, for transparency, basically, you know, what we do here for permitting and how that's going. 54 and 55 get into our compliance program, inspections that we conduct, the complaints that we investigate. You know, when residents do have concerns, we respond very timely to those and summarize all that various activity. Pages 56 and 57 get into our various outreach and education efforts and provide some statistics in here, different things that we do to connect our communities. And we are all over the place. Earth Day, you know, was here just recently. We're in events everywhere across the Valley right now as we speak. And so we take that very seriously and really want to engage in every way that we can. Pages 50 and 59 get into our STAR work culture, and you saw some of that on display here this morning with our recognition. We take that very seriously. We love talking about it and the work that we do, giving back to our community. We have community service programs here every year across the Valley, and just want to profile that. And then there's a blank page at the end, which tells me that I'm at the end of the report. So I will turn it back to you, Mr. Chair and board members, for any questions or comments, and then maybe you can open it up to the public as well, to see if there's any comments as well from the public.
So best ever, right? It continues to be more engaging with the public. People like the beautiful pictures. The relevance, though, is in all the graphs. And if I could just consolidate all the graphs down and say to the public, look, this is where we started, this is where we are, and this is where we have to go. It's very apparent that we've done really great work, and we still have a long ways to go. And that's the way it's going to continue to be until you get to zero on everything, which, you know, won't be while I'm upright anyways. But it's just great work that we need to be able to tell people about. So questions, comments? Dr. Sheriff, I think you're looking.
I agree.
Oh.
I turned it off. Thank you. Yeah, I agree strongly with your comments. I think, this report is a great presentation to the community about what goes on, helping increase their understanding. There's a lot of very good education in this, I think, for the public, which is really strong. And I obviously appreciate the emphasis on upfront public health. So great, good public education, talking about our progress. I think it is so important highlighting successes because it looks like a daunting, unattainable quest. So success is an important motivator. And it also focuses heavily, I think, on collaboration, which has been so important and is so important now, particularly as much of what we need to accomplish is not entirely in our hands, and we need the help of the public, businesses, state government, federal government, to get there. One thing I think we're missing that would also help in terms of that collaboration and taking advantage of what's out there. Polls show increasing concerns with the public about climate change. And we do highlight some important things we've done in terms of taking advantage of opportunities out there. But I think it would be helpful to be looking and thinking about ways to be more open in our embracement of those challenges, and looking for better ways to collaborate with those public concerns. Because we understand that, improvements in greenhouse gas emissions are improvements in air quality. And I think that's an important framework nexus to run with in terms of the public. They're looking for that. They respond to that.
Yeah,
there is a lot in here that speaks to that, but I think we would benefit by being more obvious in that. One example would be in terms of the wildfires. We don't talk in this about the effect of climate change on wildfires. So helping the public understand what they do for greenhouse gases and climate change is going to help this mission. Absolutely. So we want people to engage and do that. Thank you.
Thanks. Member Preciado.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I just would like to attest this is really a powerful tool that I always take every year, copies and distribute in my community. So that's a very powerful tool to educate the community about the challenges and about the benefits and what the work that our district is doing reducing pollution. Also, I would like to attest that every time we have an opportunity to have an event and have information booths, I have invited the Air District, and they've been there with information, reaching out the community. And I would like to say that all the efforts that the district is doing is showing and this report shows the transparency in the whole process. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Vice Chair Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, to the staff and Samir, I think this is a wonderful report. It highlights a lot of information for our public as well as the board up here. Each year that I've been here, I've seen this report, and I think it's palatable for the public, for them to be able to understand what this board is doing and how it's trying to combat air pollution to make their lives more livable and healthier. One of the questions that I have on the community outreach, do our staff go to say street fairs or community fairs like our county fairs and such to set up information booths?
We usually don't go to county fairs, as those tend to be a little too big, in all honesty. But we do go, as a matter of fact, I have folks scheduling to go to like the first Friday, whatever event it might be, or the, second Tuesday farmer's market or whatever it is. So we do those that have a little bit more of that personal, that maybe don't have rides. Let's put it that way. They don't have a ride.
Okay.
So people are more going to wander and walk and chat. Those are the events we go to.
Okay, because I know in a lot of communities, you have your various police departments when they have the national outreach to the community, might be a good venue, at least in our community, for you to come. And we have a couple of street fairs each year. We just had one this past Saturday. So that would be a nice event that we can invite you to appear at also.
We're always looking for
Yeah.
invitations to
All
those
right.
types of events
Okay.
and are able to go and every year I think there's always there's a few things that are more of like maybe annually we'll do, and then every year there's always like the new events that maybe we hear about something that
Right.
would be great for.
And we're gonna-
so please invite us to
Yeah,
what's out
start
there.
a
and we'll
farmer's market
try to
pretty soon, so that would be another one.
Yeah.
that
Perfect.
Would be good. So thank you for the report. It's excellent, and I appreciate the simplicity and complicated nature of it all in one, because certainly there's a lot in there that I still don't understand, but you make it easier to palate when it's put in writing and it has pictures to follow. Thank you again. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Member Nguyen.
Hi, first I want to thank the staff. This is a wonderful community document. Your graphics and the visual interest and color changes, I know that's a lot of work, and you've done a wonderful job. I appreciate that. And I had a friend who asked me why Visalia was on the Weather Channel as a high pollutant area, and so I was able to snap a picture of that, send it to her, say, but look where we are now. And I also wanted to know, do staff ever go to council work sessions and give presentations? Is that possible? I'd like to get you
Yes.
on our schedule, because I think
Absolutely.
this is very.
Yes, please. Yes,
Okay.
we'll work that out. Yeah.
Thank you.
Dr. Pacheco Warner.
Thank you all. It's such a beautiful report, and I look forward to giving this to my 5-year-old and saying, this is what mommy does. So one of the things that I see here, I mean, just so much, so great. And I really like page 17 in terms of helping us understand where we need to be. And I'm wondering if some of that clarity on the standards can also translate to where we need to be for the PM on page 19. So just kind of taking some of that, kind of trying to understand where we need to be next, and also just, the complicated matter of, because we have the graphs up top on page 19 with, you see the 24 micrograms, 22, 13, what does that mean in terms of where we are and where we need to be? And then, the fact that, we're exceeding the 35 microgram, the 2%, what does that mean in terms of where we need to end up? So if there's opportunities for that, that'd be great. And then also on the outreach, I think one of the things that I think is really cool but isn't in here is really kind of how you've all, really taken to thinking about diverse communities and outreaching in diverse communities and diverse languages. And so if there's an opportunity to highlight a room to highlight that, I think that'd be really great for folks to know as well. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you very much. Member Scutia Braden.
Thank you, Chair Chiesa. I won't repeat what has already been said in terms of kudos to a job well done on this report. Once again, I'm not surprised. The end product of this report, what will it be, an 8.5 by 11 book, or is it a foldable? Because
So we're
the
gonna
print is
put the
awfully
camera in.
small. I'm struggling to read it, and I'm just hoping that the end result, okay, bigger. Okay, so the print hence will be a little bit larger? Will the print be a little bit larger?
It'll be, well, about the same actually
Yeah.
as what you're probably
It'll be
seeing
what you
on
see.
on the hard printed. Well,
I
oh, no,
see.
so you're looking, so I think you're looking at something a little smaller than what.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so this is the version that we're looking at over here.
Okay.
It'll be this size, not the size that you're
Okay.
holding. Yeah.
Because the boxes with grade text or grade font are very challenging to read.
No, yes,
But
yes,
perhaps-
yes.
Yeah, we
Perhaps if
printed
they're
the incorrect version
It'll be
for you. I apologize.
it'll be twice as big as the version that you're looking at there, yeah.
Wonderful. Along the same lines as what Dr. Pacheco was, addressing, did we address in having Mr. Cantu present here in Modesto, it would be a great opportunity to highlight the good work that our, Citizens Advisory Committee have done in collaboration with the district. Do we reference them anywhere? And if not, maybe we could consider incorporating their good work and their collaboration, because to say that we do a good job and our data points articulate that, but we do it in collaboration and in input with our diverse community would be wonderful.
Thank you, yeah,
And
and
in
I
that-
think, we
Yeah,
can
so
do
I
that
would
for
think it
sure,
would be
yes.
somewhere between 26 to 28, somewhere on those pages, but. And then on page 28, we do reference, and on that same note, the good work that our AB 1617 communities do. We do reference it a little somewhat in this graphic here on 28. I just think that's another great opportunity. We really need to showcase the collaboration we do with that stakeholder group and how critical their input is to our work. But besides that, once again, kudos. It's a comprehensive, well-written, well-documented with graphics report and really talks about the good work that we do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if we decide to do that, we have to add the EJAG also. We'd have to reference the other committee. Those are the only two committees we have standing, right?
Yes.
And besides,
Yeah. Yeah,
Besides
and I think there is space for that, and we
Yes.
can do that,
Okay.
and I can respond to some of these different things,
Yeah.
maybe either now or like as I'm collecting comments. so,
Save them,
yeah.
please.
Okay.
Be very good. Member Robinson.
This is just the perfect opportunity to praise staff. I mean, this kind of falls under how do you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. In the last 20 years, it's incredible what you've achieved. And I think it all goes back to your star culture that you have here. It's even more impressive when you take in consideration the balance that you have to achieve between the stakeholders, business, and the environment. So I'm appreciative, grateful.
So you don't want to take credit for the last 20 years?
I'm green. I'm new here, but I am impressed.
I love it. Thank you. Member Mendez.
Yeah, well, I've been here 10 of the last 20 years, but, which I'm not gonna take any credit because the staff's the one that needs all the credit. But this has progressed beautifully over the years. It just keeps getting better and better and better. One thing I think everybody in this room and the staff always needs to realize is, we're looking at 20 or 30 years, but we need to look at, I know we're not talking about radiation, which you have a common background of it all the time. But if you look at the early Spanish writings of when they first seen the valley, their description was a smoke-filled, mosquito-infested hellhole that they stayed out of. And we have to really think that the native people that actually lived on the valley, on the San Joaquin Valley floor, are very tough people. So we didn't start, we can look at 20 and 30 years ago, once we came into existence and what we've done, but we need to go clear back to the beginning before there was actually any civilization here, because this was not a good, clean air place. So I'm just making that statement, because people think that we can get to a near zero emissions. Well, it was never that way, even before civilization was here. But you've done a great job. This is and you do a better job every year.
Thank you. Member Reyna.
Thank you, Chair. You probably saw it yesterday on the news about cities, the most polluted cities in the United States. And several of our cities in the valley were on the list, Bakersfield being number 3, Visalia, Porterville, Hanford, number 2, Fresno, Madera, number 5, Modesto, Merced, number 6. And what I wanted to ask, could we include what type of work the Air Pollution Control District is doing to improve, or what we have done to improve the air within these cities? I think that the public might see this and wonder why, if we are being so successful in this wonderful brochure or report states, why those cities continue to be at the top of the list of the most polluted cities in the United States.
I think that was the last board member on the list. Maybe I could respond a little bit. I'll start with the last comment and then just a few quick observations, confirmations on some things that we could do. Yeah, no, I think Councilmember Reyna, you do bring up something that is confusing to residents. You know, every year the American Lung Association puts out their reports, the state of the air reports, and the way that they do their evaluation, you know, basically most of the California and actually most of the country actually fails. They get F grades because they have a very, their methodology is one that isn't really centered on looking at federal standards. They actually take a very, they take a different approach really in looking at this. And so often, you know, what you'll see is what you just described. Although that same report, by the way, took, there's a county in the Northern Valley who's always been an F grade, actually went to a D, got a passing grade. A D is a passing grade in that report. San Joaquin County actually got a passing grade. And we're the only extreme non-attainment area ever who's ever not gotten an F, including, you know, but even coastal counties in California will actually get F grades also in that same report. So there is often, you know, a lot of discussion around, you know, so this report does offer basically, I would say, some clear information around the progress that's been made. And by the way, I do have to say, on the American Lung Association's reports, they do cite progress being made. They cite the wildfire challenges. We do engage with them and do appreciate that the report highlights the challenge that we all have. But you're right. I mean, if you only look at that report, you don't necessarily get the sense that there's been significant improvements in these cities, in our counties. And so there's always a challenge of how do we communicate that. This report obviously is one way. There are other reports that are out there, other information the public can see that does provide that fuller picture. I'm going to look and see if there's a way to provide a little bit more of a, you know, I do think the report as proposed really captures the improvements that are happening across the valley, and includes those cities, by the way. And often it's those cities that are those peak values that we talk about that we shave and are now at their lowest levels ever. Maybe we can be a little bit more specific about those cities as we talk about some of that progress. Otherwise, I'm afraid, you know, I'm not sure exactly how, you know, other than, you know, taking the American Lung Report and then just, you know, going through it one piece by piece and trying to break it down. I'm not really sure how else to respond other than just providing the facts as they are, which is what this report tries to do. And we could probably just point out the cities a bit more specifically, maybe as we talk about ozone, as we talk about PM 2.5. By the way, what you just listed were for PM 2.5. For ozone, the other cities are rising more, you know, so basically our region is most challenged for PM 2.5. The South Coast Air Basin is the most challenged area for ozone, and actually by way beyond us, our progress has been very significant for ozone relative to their area and some other areas. So it is complicated also when you talk about, you know, whether it's ozone or PM 2.5, you know, what's the worst city, you know, how do you like take all that into account? It's very confusing for the public. So we try not to get too much into that report and just try to offer the facts as they are, right, which is what this report does. So maybe we can look at the cities and just list them out. And I could respond a little bit to just a real quick couple of the other questions that came up. Dr. Sheriff had a suggestion. I do think we have a little bit of space on page 35 to, that image at the very top is very generous on space. We do have established positions on climate and the nexus and the co-benefits. I think we can articulate that a little bit more fully on page 35 if the board generally is okay with that. I mean, I think we can bring more of that in onto that page and try to address the suggestion that Dr. Sheriff's had. I think we can do more on page 19 around the PM standards to get to Dr. Pacheco-Werner's suggestions. I think maybe having some lines illustrating the actual standards themselves, including the new 9 microgram standard and the 12, and just something that, you know, like just to put it in perspective, and other ideas, maybe I'll talk to the staff and see if there's other ways to do that as well. I think we can do more on page 27 to highlight the other suggestion around the engagement efforts around our diverse communities and languages. I think there is space between pages 26 and 27 to highlight that, and maybe even on page 28 and 29. We use a lot of the real estate there on the images and the numbers. We can add a little bit more, I think, on the AB 617 engagement that was raised by Councilmember Scutia Brayton. And I think I captured most of. Did I miss any here? Did I miss any, Jamie, that you captured?
You can make these graphics a little smaller.
Yeah, maybe a little smaller, not too small. You know, that's always about, by the way, that's always the balance with these reports, is that it's already pretty, you know, 60-page plus, right? So we do try to, like, we do have to land on something that's not, it then becomes a big technical report. So I hope I captured most of the suggestions that came in, but if you have any other ideas, feel free to reach out to me. And we do want to basically finalize this draft as soon as possible to get it published. That'll be our goal.
Nice, sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Samir, I just want to highlight that I think the graphics are important because not everybody reads, but they do understand symbols. So, you know, don't try to do away with the graphics. We may want to add more. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other suggestions, email them. We do go to public comment on this.
Do we have any public comments in Bakersfield?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public in Modesto that would like to comment on this?
Yes, we do have a public comment in this.
Thank you.
Ben Cantu again. I think staff has done an impressive job. This document really provides a very extensive, detailed, technical level of information and easy to understand. My question, I have a suggestion. The question is, how is this information disseminated to the general public?
Through the chair, I can take that. Thank you, Chair Cantu. Yeah, so what we're going to do is, well, there's different avenues for it, but we will issue a press release today. So we're going to try to get some media, for example, around the reports. We will share it, of course, with the CAC, the EJAG. We're going to highlight this during. We have a lot of public workshops and events that will be basically letting folks know about the reports. We do have a lot of connections with various associations, whether it's agriculture, industry, manufacturers, NGOs, a lot of community partners. We have a pretty large network of folks that in different capacities, we have those relationships with. All of them will receive copies of the report and just basically the information of how to access it. Elected officials, let's see here, symposiums, conferences will be available obviously in our offices and all our lobbies. So we're going to try to get the word out as much as we can. And obviously, as we engage, for example, with the CAC, if you guys have ideas, if there's distribution mechanisms or avenues that maybe we could access, would always look for more ways to get it out. So it's a great question, and we're always looking for more access to this information. Appreciate that.
Do you use the social media?
We do. I should have mentioned that, but yes, we do.
Okay, so you'll disseminate it through that process as well?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's social media. We'll have our existing mechanisms, but anybody who can tag or whatever other terminology is used to increase the, the number of folks that see it, please, distribute it and like it and whatever it is that, people do on social media. That'd be appreciated.
Okay. I have one suggestion, that you send several copies to every library in the district. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments in Modesto?
No further comments in
No.
Modesto.
Okay, thank you. Are there any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment? Seeing none, and we have no online comments requested.
All right, thank you. I think there's no action needed. I think you have enough direction. And any other comments you can email to Samir. All right, going to move on to item number 9, which is a report on the 2023-24 winter residential wood smoke reduction strategy.
So I'd like to introduce Robert Gillis, our manager over the air quality analysis section, and Jamie is back to help also provide this report. I'll turn it over to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Robert.
Good morning, Chair and members of the board. As Samir mentioned, I'm Robert Gillis. I'm the program manager in the Air Quality Science and Planning Department. And I'll get us started, and at some point I'll hand it off to Jamie to finish up. So as a start, as in a reminder, the public health impacts of wood burning, scientific research does link prolonged inhalation of wood smoke to a variety of health effects, like lung disease and decrease in lung function for children especially, also hypertension, heart disease, cancer, heart failure, neurological effects. And also residential wood burning emissions are among the largest sources of the direct PM2.5 emissions that we see during the winter months. And the evening inversions in the wintertime, they magnify the concentrations and the exposure to residents in the neighborhoods. So there have been significant air quality improvements due to the overall residential wood smoke reduction strategy. So residential wood burning curtailment program is a very highly cost-effective public health measure. There are large PM2.5 reductions with very low implementation costs. These measures do improve public health by reducing emissions when and where those reductions are needed the most. So that's in the evening time especially. And significant reductions in direct PM and the precursors to particulate matter have also contributed to reaching key air quality milestones in the valley, especially just a few here below the 150 microgram PM10 standard, the 65 microgram 24-hour PM2.5 standard. Those have both been attained in the valley, previously non-attainment. And there's been significant progress as well toward the 15 microgram per cubic meter annual PM2.5 standard. And as Samir mentioned a little bit ago, last year was a great year. So for a single year, all Valley PM2.5 sites were under that 15 microgram standard. So that's great progress.
Was that because of the rain, or what do you think caused that? Was there any?
Yeah, I'd be happy to continue with the slides and cover some more of the progress that's been made. Thank you for the question. And then also there's been significant progress towards the lower 35 microgram 24-hour standard and the 12 microgram annual standard. Those are both for PM2.5. So overall, the Valley has maintained significant progress in improving air quality, and this is due to the district's PM2.5 emissions control strategy, which includes this comprehensive residential wood smoke reduction program. Some of the bullets here I'll go over, but there are also more details in following slides in this presentation as well. So this previous winter season was a new record low average PM2.5 concentration across all counties in the Valley. There were 0 days of exceeding the 65 microgram daily PM2.5 standard. And this is the 5th consecutive year for that progress. There's also a record low Valley exceedances of the lower 35 microgram PM2.5 standard. This is also, I guess this is the first year where there were 0 exceedances of the 24-hour standard. in the months of January and February. And overall, it was a really good year. There were 95% of all of the days in the entire season across all counties were meeting the 24-hour PM2.5 health standard. There was also maintained continued progress with increasing number of good and moderate air quality index days across all counties in the district during the season. And the season PM2.5 chemical speciation analysis also showed components of PM2.5 that decreased. So again, more details on a lot of these in the following slides. So this recent winter season was the 5th winter season of implementing the new wood smoke reduction strategy, which was adopted by the board in 2019. The Rule 4901 amendments at that time had lowered curtailment thresholds for hotspot counties of Madera, Fresno, and Kern. It also included public education and incentives programs enhancements. And there were new requirements for fireplace remodels, enhanced compliance during real property transfers, and enhanced visible emissions limits during that amendment. And just the image on the left is just a graphic. It shows the difference between the curtailment thresholds for hotspot counties, which is just on the right of the arrow, and the other counties have higher levels before curtailments happen. There's a lot of data in the graph here, of course, but this is overall just showing a trend over time during winter seasons of the days where curtailments, no burning was declared for those days. Emphasizing just on the bottom in yellow is the recent winter season, and we can see each of the counties in the district have their counts shown. And then on the far right on the bottom, just wanted to point out that number there. The total county days, that value is lower than all of the other previous years after the rule amendments in 2019. And it's just indicative of some of the improving air quality that we've been experiencing. Here's another look at is improving air quality. This is air quality index. The colors are related to the air quality index. And just briefly on the left are the earlier winter seasons. Toward the right are the later winter seasons, with the most recent winter season kind of highlighted in that box. And what we can see here is an overall increase in the number of green and yellow days. Those are good and moderate air quality index days. And that trend is going up, where those combined days are taking up more and more days during the winter season are in those AQI categories. And there are fewer and fewer days that are above the standard, which those are the orange colors and the red colors. And actually this most recent season, there was just one day that was in the red AQI category, which is the unhealthy category. So this is a really good trend that's continuing. This is another look at the progress. On the left, the large red bar and the smaller green bar. This is an early winter season where there were far more red unhealthy AQI days during the winter season. And these are county days again. So just as a quick touch, there are 8 counties in the district. So a county day, each calendar day has 8 county days. So that's what these numbers mean. And this just shows the good and the unhealthy AQI days during the seasons. And on the right, we see really the pattern has shifted. It's swapped, where there are far more days in the good AQI category. In this recent season, there was just that one unhealthy day. This is another look at the progress that's been made, kind of emphasizing by rule amendments, which is when there were enhancements to the overall program. PM2.5 levels have consistently decreased the winter season after the rule amendments and other changes to the wood smoke reduction strategy have happened. So that's what we're seeing with the blue bars representing average PM2.5 during the winter season just before a rule amendment. And the orange bars would be the first winter season when those rule amendments took effect. So from left to right, older to newer, we see not only progress in general, but also progress specifically around when those rule amendments happened. And so this is just another good representation of the progress that has been made and continued. And as we've mentioned, and most members will know, the nighttime hours are a really important part of the winter season. PM2.5 to look at this when we see and expect the highest PM2.5 concentrations. So this graph represents progress as well, but just looking at the nighttime hours, where at the top, that brown line is a really early winter season. So we not only see that from the past to the current year going down there, with the overall concentrations have decreased, but there's also been a decrease in that kind of the magnitude of that curve. So the emissions problem at night also appears to be decreasing when we look at the overnight hours, which is a really positive sign of the progress that's been made during the time of the day, the nighttime, when the emissions reductions matter the most. So also a contributing factor, we definitely need to understand how the weather contributes to the air quality concentrations. So during this previous winter season, from November to the end of February, there's the 4 months, we saw a little bit of a dual personality, so to speak. November and December had higher stability. So atmospheric conditions were more conducive to higher PM concentrations during those 2 months. And we actually saw the highest concentrations during around mid-December. So overall, the worst that we saw in this winter season was during around December 17th. But then we saw the best dispersion during January and February, which those really good dispersion conditions are the times when we expect to see lower PM 2.5 concentrations. So it started off with some higher concentrations, and then we ended up with some better concentrations, partially due to some of the weather effects on the pollution. So this is a more specific look at the month by month. This atmospheric stability parameter is just a representation from the temperature of the atmosphere at certain heights above the surface. And this month by month view, we can see in November and December, the blue bars are above the zero line, which just means that we had higher atmospheric stability, and those are conditions where we would expect higher PM 2.5 concentrations. January and February are below the zero line, just representing times when the atmosphere was more dispersive. So we see here again, also a little bit in November, December, then flipped in January and February, we had better dispersion. And the hashed bars are just comparing to averages from the past. So we get a little bit of a comparison of what has typically happened during these months. So this is continuing on the same atmospheric stability parameter, but here comparing to the average PM 2.5 concentration for the entire valley during the winter seasons. The blue bars again represent the average atmospheric stability, and the green line represents the average PM 2.5 concentration. And we can see in this most recent winter season, the blue bar is below the zero line. So we had overall of the 4 months on average, pretty good dispersion. And to put that into context, that can point us to a previous year where there was similar average dispersion, like maybe the 2018-2019 year, where that bar was just below the zero, but the average PM 2.5 was higher than what we saw this most recent year. So this is another indicator of just some ways that we can see how we can compare the progress that's been made with the PM 2.5 concentrations, not solely being due just to the weather conditions. So it helps us to compare that and to get a good look at that.
And hopefully they answered the question that you'd raised earlier. So it took but we're getting to it there, but thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Samir. And then the last slide that I'll cover here just is a view at two of the key chemical components to PM 2.5. We know that there are multiple chemical compounds that result in the overall PM 2.5 measurements, but two key portions of the chemical speciation profile are ammonium nitrate, here represented in the blue bars, and organic carbon represented with the yellow bars. And so the overall trend, again, the earliest years on the left to the most recent group of years is on the right, it does show a reduction in these key chemical speciation components of the PM 2.5. And this most recent 23-24 season recorded a significantly lower concentration of these two chemical speciation profile of the PM 2.5. And then just as a note, this is just Modesto. There are 4 air monitoring sites in the valley and that do the chemical speciation profile. And we see the similar trend at all sites. And now I'll hand it over to Jamie. Thank you.
Sorry, one quick note too, the appendix to the board memo, there's a technical report in there. It does actually have that information as well. Just wanted to note, like, if you're looking for it, it's actually available in the memo.
Thanks, Mayor.
As Robert showed, this program has been one of our most successful programs in reducing wintertime PM 2.5 emissions. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about why that's happening. First and foremost, we have our wood stove and fireplace changeout incentive program. We give residents funding to assist them in swapping out either their wood burning device, whether it's a fireplace, a wood stove, or a wood burning insert. During the 2023 calendar year, and I say calendar year because we really promote this program year round. Ideally, we want folks to make these changes in kind of the off season. Our retail partners really appreciate that. They're less busy in the off season, in the summer months. And it means that once those cold temperatures come around, they're prepared with either a gas or an electric device that helps us keep our emissions low. During the 2023-24 winter seasons, we issued 1,400 vouchers. In those two dollar amounts, $11 million for the past year and $5.5 million for the winter season. Just to put it in context, this has been a very successful program, and since 2009, over 30,000 vouchers have been issued with over $64 million awarded. We will continue to promote it and work with our retail partners to make sure that this is something that is easy for our residents to take advantage of. We wrap our incentive program within our outreach, and we really emphasize the health impacts of wood smoke when we're encouraging people to swap out their wood burning device or to follow the curtailment levels when we do issue those no burn days. We warn residents when air quality is expected to deteriorate, and we give them tools that they can use to protect their health. We want them to understand that wood smoke really is more than anything, a neighborhood pollutant. That smoke is leaving your house, and if you happen to live in an older neighborhood like mine, coming right back in through my old windows and doors. It's impacting my neighbors, and it's really having the biggest impact on whoever might be using that wood burning device. We encourage that upgrade, as I mentioned, and we leverage a very comprehensive media package, both our paid media, those are our paid advertising campaigns, both traditional and social. Earned, that's when we get chatter on our social media posts, or we put out a press release and get some positive PR, or through our own media. That's our social media accounts, our website, other assets that we control. As I mentioned, we do bilingual advertising, both network TV, you'll see it on your broadcast media, cable TV, outdoor billboards, what we call cartella posters at small markets in our rural communities. We're on a variety of social media outlets. We do digital advertising that includes on streaming services such as Hulu. That whole field has exploded in the last about 5 years. And then search engine marketing, if someone's going to go in and look for, maybe they want to replace their fireplace, they'll then see our grant as a potential option to help them do that. We do have a smartphone application for both iPhone and Android that will update people with the daily wood burning status for their county. And then we do a fair number of press releases. We work with our valley meteorologists and our weather reporters. It's great that in our Bakersfield and Fresno media market, they are able on the evening news to specifically tell you what the wood burning status is. Outreach statistics for this past year, over 34,000 calls to our 1-800-SMOG info line in Spanish and English, over 260,000 visits to our residential wood smoke page. We received nearly 3,000 public complaints on suspected activity, and our entire portfolio of wintertime outreach has 53 million total impressions. That's eyeballs seeing what we do. This is just a few of our outreach graphics, some of our social media posts, a few more. I want to thank all of you for helping us out with some of our outreach and being a part of this campaign. We have a variety of commercials, a suite of commercials that we use both on broadcast, cable TV, and then streaming services. it's key that we make sure that the public is aware of this program. The results of the emission reductions over the past 20 years have really been tied to the public understanding and supporting this rule and all of the different elements that are part of it. That health message will continue to be a focus. This year, it was a soft protect public health and please avoid wood burning. I do want to add that those curtailments also, they are for outdoor wood burning as well. So those outboard chimeneas, fire pits. When we have a no burn day, you can't use those if you're actually burning wood. If you have a gas one, you don't have to worry about it, which is, I have that in my backyard. And we, of course, encourage participation in our incentive program. While education, outreach, and incentives are our primary focus for the public, we do have a compliance campaign that kind of wraps around this. Most of all, we're responding to complaints. We do outreach nights and weekends. We've spent nearly 3,500 staff hours on proactive monitoring and complaint response. We issued 470 notices of violation. What happens when you get a notice of violation? It's a $100 penalty, but if you go to our super exciting and always fun district smoke school, you can cut that in half. Of course, there are higher penalties for repeat offenders. We don't go knock on doorways. We don't get on private property. We use low light imaging technology to see smoke coming out of chimneys. Usually that's done from a district vehicle, from a public right of way, usually a roadway. And we do work to make sure that folks understand why this rule is so important and that it's working. It is actually helping us reach our emission targets that we have for PM. And it's a great way for residents to carry a little bit of the burden that we're also putting on others, our business community. Looking ahead, we have a new public opinion survey that we're launching here in the next few months. We're working closely with our community organizations to provide education regarding this strategy so they can be prepared to answer questions. We're continuing to do outreach on heat pumps and other zero emission technology. There's a lot of money coming down the road from the federal government, and we want to make sure that we're prepared to leverage that money in a really equitable and effective way. There's a lot of new research that we're looking at with regard to where the PM levels are coming in the valley. As was mentioned by Samir when we went through the PM report, PM's really complex. It's not just smoke coming out of chimneys. There's some PM that's created in the atmosphere, and we want to make sure that we fully understand that. And we are looking at potential enhancements to the rule as we look at this new PM standard that's coming down the road. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our IT team. We've got a 30-second commercial that we ran this year that we got a lot of really positive feedback on. It's only 30 seconds, James.
Director's cut, so I want to see that.
I'm Connie Young. I'm a retired registered nurse. I found out about a program through the Air District that would provide several $1,000s if I were to disable my fireplace and switch over to a heat pump. The advantage of a heat pump is that it doesn't burn any fossil fuels to run it, and it's extremely efficient. And this is one real simple thing that we can do to improve our air quality and our quality of life in this valley.
So we will now turn it back to you, Mr. Chair, and the board for any questions or comments. That's clearly a big priority, for the board and the agency. It's always evolving, ever evolving, and we are going to be looking at this in the context of the new plan. More to come on that in the coming months with that respect. And the survey, I think, will be really helpful several months down the line here to kind of keep our finger on the pulse of where the public is on this, and within that, are there more opportunities even to keep evolving the strategy. So very happy to report that it was another solid implementation of the strategy, and would love to hear any feedback any of the board members or public may have.
Yeah, very good report. Member Sheklian.
Two questions and a comment. You did mention, I was thinking about the open air fire pits and whatnot, and is there any kind of incentive for those to be, turned in and swapped out for a gas fire pit or something like that?
Not currently.
Yeah.
I mean, we can always look at those opportunities as we kind of better understand. I do know those have become popular in recent years. And I don't know that there's like a lot of hard data on
Yeah, and that was the other part
exactly
of
how many
you-
are out
yeah,
there. So
about
we,
those
yeah.
per se, or mostly
So maybe as
fireplaces?
we do the survey and we look at behaviors and we perhaps understand better, how much of that is happening, and either there may be an opportunity there. There's also obviously a lot of retailers who will offer, both products, right? The wood burning, but also gas options. So yeah, I think that's an interesting question, because I think it would be good to kind of see like how significant that particular activity
Right.
has become, and is there an opportunity for
And a
reducing
washing
that rate?
machine drum, they make them out of those. Storm away. Yes, also, with the complaints, so it's a Friday night at 10 o'clock and somebody makes a complaint. Obviously, somebody doesn't go out there at that time. Or is there a way to check on that with the low light thing from a remote? I mean, is that how it works?
Yeah, depending on the circumstances, we do have staff that go out nighttime and perform,
Okay.
follow up on that complaint.
So in Visalia, I mean, you just call in the complaint and.
Depending on the
Okay.
circumstance, yeah.
Sure.
And especially if it's a situation where we're receiving several complaints about it and it's an ongoing issue.
So it kind of becomes a hot spot and
We'll
maybe,
absolutely,
no
yeah,
pun
focus,
intended.
When we do our nighttime observations, we'll make sure that's an area that we're going out to and we're spending time and trying to address those situations. And we definitely had those situations last year. We addressed them and worked with the person that was being impacted, and we got a lot of positive feedback and response as a result of those efforts.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you very much. Member McCauley?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so I have a heat pump at my house, but at elevation 3,800 feet, sorry, I didn't mean to leave you hanging there. I'd be kind of silly to get rid of my fireplace, because oftentimes during the winter months, we do lose power. So I'm curious to know if, in an effort to get more energy efficient, fireplaces out there, perhaps we can create some sort of exemption for those in areas that tend to lose power, where they could keep their fireplace but still put in a heat pump as their primary source of heat. So just a suggestion, a thought, and again, how we might expand the program.
And our grant program currently does, if you don't have natural gas, it does give a smaller dollar amount, but it lets you go from a dirtier, non-EPA certified wood burning stove or insert to an EPA certified device. But that's only in those areas where folks don't have access to natural gas.
So, but in that instance, you would still have to get rid of your wood burning device, correct?
Well, you'd go from dirty wood burning to cleaner wood burning.
So you would have like a pellet stove or something of that nature? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Member Robinson?
In regards to the heat pump, so I know it's like up to a $5,000 voucher, but what percentage is subsidized? 1 to 1, what's the ratio?
So we're gathering data on this. It's a great question, because it can be very costly to upgrade your home to a heat pump, and it's not just the fact that you're transitioning your central HVAC system from, say, a natural gas furnace combo type unit to the electric system. That's actually a little bit more expensive, or quite a bit more expensive than the conventional, say, system. But then you've also got to potentially do a lot of electrical upgrades to the home to also be able to, or electrical work, certainly, to, there's a lot more electric stuff going on. So then maybe there's a panel upgrade and other wiring and things that you have to do. That total cost can be pretty significant. Now, what we've also seen, though, is that in addition to our grant, there are federal tax credits that are available, and they're very significant. Those credits, that when you combine the two, can help shave the cost down to where hopefully it's at least a bit better than upgrading your system to, say, another conventional system, right? So you're looking at, there's also this concept of incremental cost, and are you able to bring those costs down to where you're still getting a good value, because you're getting energy efficiency savings from the system. Hopefully you're reducing your if you've coupled it with solar, There's even other savings that you may be able to consider. And so, yeah, if those grants kind of bring that cost down enough, and then you take the savings into account, do you have enough of a value proposition in that to see a bigger conversion? I do think that there's a growing interest in heat pumps as those federal tax credits have sort of materialized, and especially if you can couple it with solar. I mean, one counter factor to that is rising utility costs. And I think just being mindful of the rates do keep going up, so solar then becomes really important. But natural gas prices also go up, and you're talking about combination of heating maybe between some wood, maybe a central system with natural gas. So it gets pretty complicated. So one of our priorities in the coming year is to partner even closer with HVAC entities to better understand exactly how the tax credits work. Make sure they take our priorities into account, and the grants certainly, but and see if there's a way to be meaningful in that process and understand those challenges, and hopefully try to bring some of those federal resources to the valley so that people can basically save money and reduce air pollution at the same time.
And then, do they work effectively as a whole home system, or is it predominantly for a room or two?
Generally, it's for the whole home. Yeah, and that's why it's expensive too, because you're traditionally talking about converting the entire central system over to a heat pump system.
Thank you. Okay, Dr. Sheriffs?
Yeah, you may want to set the timer here because I want to tell a little story about a house call. But it highlights a lot of the issues here. I'm called late at night to go to a patient's home because he's having trouble breathing, and he sounds terrible on the phone. And I go over and I get to the front door and I'm about to knock. I know exactly what the problem is. If you can smell it, it is probably not good for you. I could smell his wood stove. And I knock on the door and he answers the door, and we do our doctor thing, and I suggest that I think the wood stove is probably a big part of this and that he shouldn't use it. So the story highlights lots of stuff, but part is, well, the health effects are really important, really important. PM 2.5 is the worst of the worst. It's really easy for people, all of us, the board, the public, to miss connections. I mean, all I had to do was come to the front door and take a sniff, and I made a connection. But he hadn't made that connection. His wife hadn't made that connection. Been struggling with asthma for years. And a reminder how wedded we are to our habits, right? Because that was part of it. He loved his wood stove. So it's highlighting the challenges we face as we try to change people's habits. We're change agents. We have to be. We can't keep doing business as usual. So, saluting staff for getting out there and doing all the good things and the enforcement and the rest of it. The wood smoke discussions are always so good. We get a great suggestion about how to think about engaging folks in the foothills who we often don't engage, and we need to engage. Amy Shuklian's comment about, well, we're sort of solving this problem over here, and look at this thing cropping up. Are we measuring it? Do we know how much of a problem it is? Some of us wake up in the middle of the night and worry about it. Well, should we worry? Should we worry more, or do we not need to worry? So it's always a great discussion. And I just want to thank the board again for engaging in it, because when we first started thinking about wood stoves, made people really nervous. Because folks in the community didn't necessarily make the connection. They sure didn't want to change their habits. So it's great we've engaged on it. And it's great that we've been fairly nimble about it. We've amended it and done some other great things. Thanking the board reminds me of something we could do in the report to the community, which is thank you, community, for doing X, Y, Z. And, the list is endless, but immediately coming to mind, thank you for burning cleaner. Thank you for chipping. Thank you for driving an EV. Thank you for buying a cleaner truck, a cleaner car, a cleaner track. There's an endless list of things. Maybe a page or a piece of a page about thank you. It's always good to thank. It gets them to do more. My question, I actually have a question. How are the numbers of violations changing? And it's hard to compare year to year, but may be helpful in terms of worrying about public acceptance and that kind of thing. And I do have one more comment that I want to make after that on this graph.
Yeah, so we did see an increase as we've made rule amendments and, but I want to highlight this year, we actually saw a decrease.
Great.
Even in response to the numerous hours that we were out there doing it, which, and I think as just anecdotally, when I would leave the office or.
Yes.
I didn't smell it as much. So I don't know if those are directly tied, but that was the trend that we did see in this past season.
Good. So we were looking harder and actually seeing less. So that's great. Are my 3 minutes up, or do I have another 15 seconds? The graph on page 7. I think one thing it reminds me, our earlier discussion about the Lung Association. Well, if we look at the graph, they say thank you because, boy, look at that, unhealthy for sensitive groups. We have clearly made progress, significant progress in that. Now, if you look at moderate, boy, that is a tough nut. That hasn't changed very much over 20 years. And does it matter? Well, I can't speak for the Lung Association, but I'm guessing where some of that comes from. They focus on that. Well, who is that yellow group? It is worth reminding ourselves. I mean, the unhealthy for sensitive groups, that's most of us. Anybody over 65, if you're taking medication for a heart condition, high blood pressure, you got a health condition like asthma or lung disease, that's over 50% of the population. But what about the moderate? Well, those are the especially sensitive people. And we hear public testimony from people who their asthma exacerbations, it doesn't take much to tip them over, cardiac issues, and a reminder that on those moderate days, we all should be thinking about our outdoor exercise. Do we need to do it? Could we do it indoors? How vigorous are we going to do it? So it's moderate. It's not terrible, but it's still definitely a health issue. So I'm glad we're up for the challenge and continuing to dig in. Thank you.
I'm impressed you make house calls.
He didn't say what year that was.
All right. Thank you.
I love making house calls, and I still give a seminar for doctors in training on house calls. And I encourage people to make them. Boy, they are just amazing.
Seeing no more questions from the board, I'm going to go out to the public.
Okay. Do we have any members of the public in Bakersfield that would like to comment on this?
No comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments in Modesto?
No public comments in Modesto.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment? Seeing none, we do have an online comment. Thomas Menz.
Good morning, Thomas. Can you hear us, Thomas?
Yes, there's always a 10-second or so delay before the unmute button becomes available. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I thank you and past board members for such steps as have been taken to limit residential wood burning. And I urge you to go further. Specifically, I urge you to use the occasion of the new PM25 plan under development to permanently curtail the use of the thousands of highly polluting, uncertified wood heaters in the valley, something that other air districts already have done. Wood burning should be limited to registered users for whom there's no other source of heat when ambient fine particulate levels are predicted to exceed 5 or 9 micrograms per cubic meter in any county. And while we could all take heart that air quality has improved dramatically since the episodic mandatory curtailments have been imposed, there was a time when 19 tons of soot were emitted each winter day from residential wood burn. And now we're down to 5.5 tons a day. But that's 5.5 tons a day with no end in sight. So we do need to do more. And, you know, I am one of those sensitive individuals. And there are still 90 to 100 days of the 100-day wood burning season, even with the most recent amendments to Rule 4901, when PM2.5 levels prevent me from going outside and walking hard for an hour as my doctor advises. So more needs to be done. Protect the majority living here who are deemed sensitive receptors, as Dr. Sheriff's just pointed out, so that we aren't taking exercise when it does more harm than good. And we need to do more to attain the existing 24-hour health standard, the 35 microgram. And there are no contingency measures to reduce wood burning in the hotspot counties should we fail attainment, as seems likely. And we need to do more to attain the old annual 12 microgram per cubic meter health standard, as well as the new 9 microgram standard. With respect to enforcement, I want to express my thanks to staff for deployment of the low-lux cameras, which allowed compliance personnel to document scofflaw burning that occurs in the evening hours under the cover of darkness. So scofflaws, you aren't as safe as you might think. But it does remain a concern to me that homes that were built with natural gas heaters and do have access to natural gas service have been given permanent sole source of heat exemptions. That's a problem, and I don't think it's what this board intended. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas.
No further online comments.
Thank you. So this is informational. You have any comments?
Informational, and there's no action needed on it. Thank you.
Thank you again, Robert, Jamie. Item 10, approve project plans to relocate community emissions reductions program funding, reallocate program funding for implementation of incentive programs within 617 communities. Hi, Jessica.
Hello, good
Jessica,
morning.
no introduction. Director of Community and Community Engagement and Resources, Jessica Gold. Go ahead.
Thank you, thank you.
Next
And
slide,
I
please.
think I try to make it the longest title every time. So thank you for bearing with me on that one. Your board has continued to be committed to providing meaningful engagement opportunities in the district strategies. It's certainly a top priority of your board and has been for a very long time. So in 2007, your board adopted the district's environmental justice strategy, which included the establishment of the district's Environmental Justice Advisory Group, or EJAG. And you also continue to invest in additional community-focused resources, really trying to uplift those communities that are disproportionately impacted by economic and environmental inequities. We're continuing to forge new partnerships and identify and leverage cleaner opportunities to focus really in on these communities. And a part of that big effort that certainly my team, but across the district we've been taking on, is the Community Air Protection Program, or AB 617. So as a brief reminder, there are 4 communities here in the Valley that receive focused resources for AB 617 implementation. Although we have heard, and I'll just continue to emphasize, that a lot of the funding that we get moves beyond these 4 communities, but today's discussion is really focusing on the Community Emissions Reductions Programs, or CERPs, that were approved by both your board and CARB's board in each of these 4 communities with very distinct emissions reduction strategies, and each one of them is sort of in a different stage of implementation. So the purpose of today's item is really to talk about the stages of implementation and a couple of the discussions moving forward on how we can shift some funding and make some moves over the next year. Just as a brief reminder, a lot of the strategies, not all of them, but a lot of the strategies in these CERPs are incentives measures, and those incentives measures are funded through Community Air Protection, or CAP, funding that comes down from the state.
Generally, there's a guideline that comes from CARB, and generally those guidelines follow Moyer, and most of the projects that are pre-approved in these guidelines tend to be those Moyer type, like heavy-duty replacement projects with a handful of other types of projects. There is a process that we've gone through, and your board has been really innovative in going through, called community identified projects, where we're allowed to submit project plans for other types of projects. And so what we're talking about today is some of those kind of unique, innovative projects that we can move forward. One thing I will highlight is actually this picture here that you see on the right that says revised October 2020. Just a week or so ago, there is now a new revision to this. And what's really unique about it and really exciting for our district is that much of the revision really includes all of those project plans that your board has approved and really all of those innovative next steps that we want to take, including some of the project types that we're going to talk about today. So that's just really exciting news and really serves as a model for all of the community efforts that are happening across the state. So we do keep coming to your board occasionally as new or changing incentive programs under AB 617 do require board approval. But also what we're talking about today is the opportunity to adjust program guidelines or shift funding from one category to another as we see program demand or community priorities or really even just interest in programs shift. We set a lot of these SERPs up years ago, in some cases almost 5 years ago that we worked on this. And so certainly as we've implemented, things have shifted and things have changed. And we're coming to your board today to talk about that evolution. Just as a reminder, none of these will have an impact on overall SERP funding. We're just proposing some shifts from measure to measure in a few of the SERPs. Since implementation began, I just want to emphasize that all of the measures we're going to talk about today have been discussed extensively, not only with the CSCs, those are the community steering committees, but also the partner agencies, which are partners on all of the projects that we're talking about today. And then of course, district staff, really to identify and support each one of these proposals. And each one of these has been talked about in all of those different meetings. In total, today's recommendations are expected to reduce over 11 tons of NOx, ROG, and PM, and 311 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent emissions. So this is just a list of today's proposed recommendations. I'm not going to read this list out loud because we're going to just go through them one by one. But as was mentioned, this will touch on the Arvin, Lamont, the Shafter, and the Stockton community emissions reduction programs. So the first handful of recommendations we're going to talk about today are really road, sidewalk, and bike lane improvement projects. And not only will there be benefits, as I just mentioned, in emissions reductions, but just want to highlight a couple of the other additional types of benefits that come with this type of project. Of course, when you pave or provide a complete street like a curb, gutter, sidewalk, we're looking to reduce emissions first and foremost. So that's limiting dust emissions and exposure to dust emissions. We also can reduce vehicle miles traveled by allowing folks to take alternative transportation. In some of the cases that we're going to talk about today, we're providing sidewalks and bike lanes, so allowing folks to reduce the number of vehicle trips that they take. We also, in a couple of these cases, we're talking about paving roads that are currently dirt roads or don't have curbs or gutters. So even though they're not dirt roads, they're adjacent to dirt. And this can help improve mud control, which not only reduces, of course, mud impacts when there's flooding, but also once it becomes muddy and then dries out, can also become a dust issue. We also, of course, are talking about increased safety on paved roads or roads that don't have shoulders or sidewalks or bike lanes. That sometimes doesn't preclude people from trying to transit those, even on foot or on bike. And so this will allow increased safety, providing an actual place for folks to safely ride or bike or walk. And then reduced maintenance. Paved roads, and especially those with those other features that I've mentioned, require less maintenance compared to dirt roads or roads without shoulders or gutters. And then, of course, improved accessibility. A couple of the places that we're talking about today, really we're talking mostly in this presentation today about more rural communities. And so providing better access year-round, even during adverse weather conditions, is really important, and something that maybe you don't think about initially when you're thinking about reducing emissions or providing community benefit to these types of projects. The first recommendation today is actually two different projects that I'll highlight in a couple of different maps. They are in the Arvin, Lamont community. And we're talking about the SERP measure that was included in your board and CARB's approved SERP, which allocates up to $12 million across that entire community for these types of projects. Today's proposed action is directly in the Kern County area in the unincorporated community of Lamont. And we're proposing a couple of different projects that are up to just over $5.8 million. Several areas within the Lamont community actually don't have curb, gutter, and sidewalks. And so you can imagine all of those benefits I just discussed, or rather the impacts if we don't, or if there isn't curb, gutter, and sidewalks, what they can do not only to the community in emissions, but also kind of those other community benefits I discussed. Over the past year, we've worked really closely with the CSC, with Kern County folks in Public Works, and also just a variety of other community members to really assess what the top priorities in the SERP are. And this is within the top 3 priorities, if not number 1 priority, depending on the community member you're talking about. So we were really adamant about making sure we worked really closely with folks to move this one forward first, or among kind of, I should say, some of the first measures we worked on. So 2 projects I'll discuss are the Panama Road sort of neighborhood complete streets, as well as Mountain View Road. So just really briefly, this is one recommendation. This is about $4.6 million. It's actually a lot of different pieces of a couple different neighborhoods along Panama Road. This is to construct complete streets. So currently this neighborhood does not have curb, gutter, sidewalk, and in some cases sidewalk gap closures. And again, this would just as a reminder, provide all of those benefits that we talked about of having a complete street. And certainly all of these different neighborhoods were discussed and prioritized by community members and by the Kern County folks that came and have participated in every single meeting we've had with the Community Steering Committee. The other part of recommendation number 1 is also with Kern County. This is a little bit less funding, but certainly a really important main road. This is Mountain View Road, also in the Lamont area. This is about just over $1.2 million. Again, this is to construct a complete street. There are currently no curb, gutter, or sidewalk along the street, and this will allow just on the north side of Mountain View Road to have sidewalks, and for both sides to have curb and gutter installed. Recommendation number 2 today is in Shafter. So we have 2 recommendations actually in Shafter. This first one is a recommendation for a bike lane project. So once again, as a reminder, there was a total funding amount in the CARB and District Board approved SERP for up to just over $3.7 million to do road, sidewalk, and bike lane improvement projects. And over the past several years, we've actually come to your board for a couple of different projects and worked closely with the city and the CSC to identify a variety of projects that fall within this category. This is sort of the last of that $3.7 million that we're coming to your board with. This is for a bike lane project on Lerdo Highway and sort of adjacent avenues. And this is approximately 5 miles of new bike lanes that will link local parks, schools, transit centers, and downtown businesses, again, to reduce the vehicle trips that folks take within the community. Just a little bit of a brief background on this project, or sort of what it does. There will be some asphalt work, some pavement sealing, and these will be Class 2 bike lanes that will be striped again on this 5-mile linkage. This is something that's been discussed not only through various CSC meetings over the past few years, but we had a really in-depth discussion at an in-person meeting where once again we had lots of City of Shafter folks discussing with community members all of the benefits of this project, and it really received a lot of high support from the community. So once again, I'll just remind you, because it's important for recommendation number 3, this 1.275 was the last of the allocation in the SERP for the road, bike lane, and sidewalk improvement projects that were approved by your board and by CARB's board. The reason that's important is because we have this other recommendation. So just to bring back a reminder that actually in August of 2022, one of the measures that your board helped us move forward with was a project in the La Colonia or Mexican colony area of Kern County. And this is a really important project for a lot of residents in the area to provide, again, complete streets, curb, gutter, sidewalk for $1.5 million. This project has been moving forward sort of in the design phase, and in discussing with the community, one piece of the project that wasn't really part of the county's proposal, and I'll show here on a map in a moment, was one half road that is actually currently a dirt road. So really there's not actually a full road into this community, and it's a really important rural part of the community. And so currently it's a pretty dusty dirt road leading into what will eventually be some complete streets that we funded. So there was really big interest in making sure we complete the full project, adding another component to this project, which will cost an additional $600,000. So recommendation number 3 is not only to approve this amendment to the project, but also to reallocate funding, since once again, I mentioned we've already exhausted the funding in this particular measure, reallocate funding to really support what should be a really complete project now, and a project that certainly reduces a lot of emissions in that area. Just to a little bit of background, this funding would be reallocated from a measure called the locomotive switcher replacement measure. A few of you have been in some meetings where we've already reallocated some funding from this measure. And just to remind folks, we started off in the SERP with sort of an aspirational goal of $4.1 million for locomotive projects. And we've worked really, really closely with rail companies, with local industry who have connections to rail companies who have locomotive switchers regarding available funding. However, as newly adopted state regulations, there's also increasing federal funding for locomotives. As these start taking off, it's getting harder and harder to get folks sort of to the table. Of course, all of these are voluntary incentives. And there really are fewer and fewer remaining opportunities or really interested partners to be able to accept these funds. We're in the last year of a 5-year SERP implementation, and so we're really eager to make sure we spend the funding that CARB has given us in the community as best as possible. So together, the district and CSC felt that shifting the funds to this high priority project that still get a lot of emissions reductions would be a nice way to use the funding. And also, just to let you know, there still remains $1.4 million in that measure. So it's not exhausting all of the funding in that measure. Just a really quick picture. Again, as I mentioned, this is to add curb, gutter, sidewalk, and which was the original project you have already helped us fund. That yellow piece right there is that half road right along Mantle Avenue, and will certainly reduce a lot of dust emissions. Finally, recommendation number 4, a little bit of a different flavor. This is actually in Stockton. This is coming before your board today because we are recommending shifting funding, once again, within the SERP budget to support additional commercial lawn and garden equipment replacement in the Stockton community. The proposal is to reallocate up to $386,000 and change from the school air filtration measure to support Stockton Unified School District replacing over 80 pieces of gas or diesel powered commercial lawn and garden equipment. Stockton CSC originally prioritized just up to $100,000 for this, and that $100,000 has been exhausted rather quickly. Working closely with the school district and with the Shafter community, folks are really eager to make sure that the goal really here is to make sure all of the equipment used in the boundary at the Stockton Unified Schools is that zero emission equipment. So certainly, aligning with the board goals and the SERP goals. I just want to highlight and remind you all, we've talked about this a couple of times. The reason we're taking it from school air filtration is because we've had that in the SERPs from the beginning, and then COVID hit, and a lot of COVID funding happened to come to a lot of schools in the area across the nation, certainly. And in working closely with Stockton Unified a couple of years ago and the CSC, together the school district and the community steering committee realized that that funding was no longer needed because there were other pots of funding. So it sort of became an area where the Stockton CSC has used to help support other measures that we've found we needed more support for. So those are the recommendations before your board today. Of course, upon board approval, we will work to implement these, communicate with the CSC, and enter into any agreements as necessary. And once again, as a reminder, these were all already appropriated in our budget, and there's no fiscal impact on this item. And with that, I'll turn it over to the chair for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jessica. So I do have a question, because every one of these projects would compete really well for active transportation grants through the state of California. No offense, especially the Arvin-Lamont one, extremely disadvantaged, safety issues, kids to school. The only component I see is that you score better when you have a match, and I don't think we could match with state funds I think that might be a downfall, but I would definitely like to know if Kern Cog, because this is, if we pulled down other money, right, then we do even better programs in the 617 communities. I'm okay going forward right now, but I want to know that Kern has tried to get an active transportation grant for these areas, because we're continually putting in and we're losing. I mean, we're not getting them in certain areas, but we've been successful. I mean, I see us successful in Stanislaus County in the extremely disadvantaged areas. So just.
No, we will follow up with them on that. And I do know that whether it's the city of Arvin or the county, I mean, there's different communities here, but I do know that a lot of these projects are complementary to other projects that have been looking for those funds. There's some park related projects, actually creating, expanding and creating parks. I do think that there is some connection going on, and we definitely try to maximize that. And we can get more, we'll certainly circle back and just make sure that's a consistent and ongoing kind of principle in these. And I do know that there are other funds that are being brought to the table, and that these sort of fit a niche sort of role that, kind of amongst broader efforts across the valley on that.
Okay, thank you. Member McCauley.
Thank you, Chair. Just one question. Do we have commitments from local jurisdictions to maintain these projects in the future, or just want to make sure they're not unmaintained or?
Thank you. This is Jess. I can answer that. Yeah, in general, and I'll just say across a lot of these different projects, that's a question we get from CSC members all the time. And certainly I don't have the details of, the number of years or maintenance. And so we can certainly make sure we get that answer. But yes, there is an understanding that they'll be maintained, that these aren't just funds that just go to, paving the streets and then they're ignored. It's usually included as a part of kind of when they take it to their board, that's part of their package that they take, and really what they bring to the table, kind of adding to Samir's point about kind of the commitment that they have to continue this and make it broader and included kind of in their community plan.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Sheriff.
Thank you. Yeah, the locomotive projects are very expensive, but they also turn out to be very cost effective in terms of what we get back. So I'm glad there are other opportunities for the locomotive stuff, which means we have some money available to do other things. So the locomotive project was estimated about 50 tons of NOx. What we can put together here is order of magnitude 11.5 tons. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, great. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, seeing no more questions here, we're going to go out to the public.
Are there any members of the public in Bakersfield that would like to comment on this?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Any public members in Modesto to comment?
No, no public commentators for Modesto.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment on this item? Seeing none in person, we do have a few online. First one will be Yolanda Alcantar.
Good morning, Yolanda.
Good morning. Thank you, members of the board. Can you hear me? Okay, so.
I can hear you.
Yes, thank you. My name is Yolanda Alcantar. I'm with Kern County Public Works, and I'm the grants manager that prepared the AB 617 project applications being considered today for the benefit of the Shafter and Lamont communities, at least in the Kern County portion, I should say, because I know city will be here shortly. I wanted to express how important these projects are for these disadvantaged areas. Public Works has been diligently working with the local leadership for many years to address environmental justice concerns, particularly through transportation modes. And we're committed to improving public health and safety by constructing infrastructure improvements that reduce air pollution to help the region meet clean air mandates. And currently these areas have dirt shoulders that turn into mud pits when we have rain events, forcing pedestrians to walk in the roadway closer to speeding vehicles. The sidewalk projects not only reduce fugitive dust and vehicle miles traveled by paving unpaved roadways, but improve safety for everyone. As outlined in this board item, 18% of all PM 2.5 emissions in the community are from road dust. And overall, for these projects in Shafter, we will reduce 266 pounds of fugitive dust and over 500 for the Lamont project. So in total, 765 pounds for both projects annually, and which is nearly 15 tons over the life of the project, because sidewalk projects last for 20 years. And yes, we will maintain those projects over the life of the project. And so this project also supports goal objective number 6 within the Air District SERP plan regarding environmental justice objective to enhance the effectiveness of emission reduction incentives for bicycle lanes and infrastructure. So we strongly support these projects and are excited for the opportunity to progress our partnerships with the Air District and community and realize effective reductions in fugitive dust. So should you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. Well, let me go back a second because there was a question about ATP. And yes, we did get active transportation funds in Lamont out of cycle 3. We got over $1 million and we did all of the sidewalks south of Panama Lane and west of State Route 185. And we also just completed additional sidewalks on Giorgio Lane. And we are very good at getting active transportation funds, but we also have 3,300 miles of roads to maintain. And so we try to spread the money around because Lamont did get such a significant active transportation grant. We are looking at other communities as well. And so that was about 3 cycles ago that we got that funding. And that's all I have. Questions for me?
Thank you very much for those comments and thanks for answering that question. Appreciate it, Yolanda.
You're welcome.
Okay, next commenter online is Michael James.
Yes, good morning. Good morning, members of the board. I'm Michael James, Director of Public Works. I'd like to thank the board for this opportunity to participate in the meeting. And most importantly, I want to express my appreciation for the opportunity to work with district staff on fulfilling AB 617 funded initiatives in the Shafter community. City staff and leaders have been very active in the local steering committee discussions, and we have learned a lot from residents and other community leaders, particularly what challenges and obstacles we face with regard to air quality, and then what resources we have and lack to address them. Fortunately, the city's in a position to lead projects and initiatives identified in the SERP that will enhance air quality as well as public safety and the overall quality of life in Shafter. The city previously entered into a funding agreement with the district to invest $1 million in sidewalk and bike lane improvements in a rural community area known as North Shafter. This particular project will provide direct pedestrian and bike lane access to local businesses, parks, and schools. And I'm happy to report that the city has issued a request for proposals for an engineer to design the project, and we hope to break ground on the project after this summer. We also entered into a separate agreement with the district to invest $75,000 in an urban greening initiative that will result in approximately 50 trees being planted at local parks, buildings, and streetscapes. And the first phase of that tree planting will take place on Saturday, May 11th at Veterans Park. We're going to be partnering with the Tree Foundation to have their volunteers plant those trees. Looking ahead to what's up for board consideration today, there's an opportunity to invest additional funds to install bike lanes throughout the core area of the city. The intent with the new bike lanes would be to provide safe and reliable access to local schools, parks, and businesses. And I can assure you that the city has the staff and resources to commit to this project whenever the district is ready to proceed. And we will factor in ongoing operation and maintenance into future budgets to address the previous question. So with that, I'd like to again extend my appreciation to district staff for their commitment to Shafter. And I'd also like to thank the board for its time and support. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
Okay, next up we have Margot Prouse.
Morning, Margot.
Good morning. I'm speaking to recommendation number 4. My name is Margot Prouse. I'm a longtime resident living within the boundaries of the Southwest Stockton AB 617 grant boundaries. I'm a retired neonatal nurse, and for years I've been aware of the failing grades and the air quality of our San Joaquin Valley. I've been part of this community steering committee since the Stockton grant effort started. Just to give you an idea of why we're focused today on equipment around schools, when I first heard about the AB 617 proposal for Stockton, we were meeting with the CARB and Air District representatives at an on-site location. The first one was Washington Elementary School, located so near our Port of Stockton that the heavy-duty trucks heading to the port were known to idle on the street directly in front of the school. and there was no other option. Concern for young children is foremost in the minds of our whole CSC. Their young lungs are sensitive to the damaging effects of air pollution, and improving our air quality is most important. Since the first meetings at the start of our grant in 2020, also the start of COVID, our meetings have all been almost all per Zoom. And we focus largely on the schools in our SERPs. First, we hope to transition to zero emission school buses, and we're thrilled at this time that the zero emission school buses are being funded and it's happening. The second was air filtration on the school sites. And that did not move forward in the Stockton Unified School District due to significant federal funding with COVID relief. So that portion of the grant money is now available to redistribute. And at this time, the CSC had a unanimous vote to shift money from the school air filtration SERP to work with the Stockton Unified School District and transition to zero emission lawn equipment. And we urge you to approve the funding for this. By the way, as an aside, due to our AB 617 CSC efforts, collaboration with the port have facilitated truck rerouting along residential streets and especially in front of the elementary. And enforcement of no idling has also had a significant effect. So until heavy duty trucks truly transition to zero emission, we still have a lot of work to do. Thank you for your time. And again, we urge you to approve this funding change.
Thank you, Margot.
Thank you. We have another online commenter, Linda Martin.
Morning, Linda.
Good morning, honorary members of the board. I am a resident of Shafter. I've been there for 15 years, and I've served on our AB 61 committee for roughly what are we going on, 5 years. I truly thank you for your consideration and funding to our city. The sidewalk infrastructure up Central is something near and dear to my heart. I see moms with strollers trying to get to the grocery store. I see children walking to school. And although this is a reduction of PM 2.5, which I do find important, I also want to stress the importance of what AB 617 is meant to do. Now, this sidewalk is going to go on basically a 4-lane highway that connects Shafter and Wasco. And right now, it's just a dirt strip for folks to walk on. You can only imagine when the winter comes and we get rain here in the valley that it's hard for those folks, and it's not safe, it's unprotected. And so I am really happy to have the opportunity to get this for the folks of Shafter. The bike lanes that are proposed that can connect the schools and parks, there was a lot of folks that I was able to get to come to our in-person meeting and stress how much they would love to have these so that they can use their bikes more often in a safe manner. We're also upgrading changing where our recreation department is, and this would also help to provide a safe way for children to get to their sports activities. I know that this comes, after the fact, after the SERP was already put in place and we're asking to allocate funds. But I do want to go back onto what Yolanda said. Kern County Public Works has tried to get grants. They're hard. And once again, I appreciate when you guys took away the match funding, because it's really made a difference for our community. Some of the challenges we've also had is to try and work with Caltrans, because the road up Central is not City of Shafter, it's Caltrans. So I appreciate the work of Michael James with City of Shafter, Yolanda with Kern County Public Works, and I thank Jessica and Stephanie for all their work, because I've been the one really pushing and driving this for members of our community. And I really hope that you will consider switching the funding for Shafter. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you. No further comments.
It's great. And, the more we talk about 617, it's kind of like being chosen as hitting the lottery, right? There's the opportunity for these long-standing wrongs to be corrected in these communities that help them out. And I don't mean that in a funny way, because you can go up and down the valley and there's many unincorporated areas outside. There's many cities that still don't have sidewalks, and really it's an opportunity to to leverage money continually. So it's fantastic that this is happening. I'm fully supportive of this, and Jessica, I appreciate all your time and energy. So this is an action item. Looking for
Yes.
no, I'm looking for a motion, not a yes vote.
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion.
So that
Lynn's-
so fast.
No. Okay. Roll call, please.
Okay, Mr. Couch,
Yes, and thank you to staff for your work.
Mrs. Gutierrez Brayton. Aye. Ms. Lewis.
Yeah.
Mr. McCauley.
No, sorry.
Mr.
Yes,
McCauley.
apologies.
Mr. Mendez.
Yes.
Dr. Pacheco Warner.
Yes.
Mr. Preciado.
Yes.
Mr. Reyna.
Yes.
Mr. Rickman. Oh, sorry, apologies, he's out. Mr. Robinson.
Yes.
Dr. Sheriff.
Yes.
Ms. Shucklian.
Aye.
Ms. Nguyen.
Yes.
Mr. Chiesa.
Yes,
Through the chair, motion passes.
thank you. And Yolanda, Michael, Margot, and Linda, thank you for calling in. And so we are moving on to item number, I'm here, 11, adopt proposed ozone contingency measure state implementation plan revisions for the 2008, 2015 8-hour ozone standard. It'll be Emily.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here with you. Emily Nealon, the program manager of the air quality planning team. As you know, the Valley faces a number of challenges with respect to meeting federal air quality standards due to a number of challenges, including our topography, meteorology, we're a major goods movement corridor, drought, wildfires, all of those factors. And so because of this, we are designated as extreme non-attainment of the 8-hour ozone standards. Because of these challenges, we do have to go above and beyond in order to meet these clean air targets. And your board has taken a number of actions to reduce emissions here in the Valley, as shown on the slide. Because of the implementation of the strategies that your board has adopted, ozone has been decreased significantly, with over 89% of days during the May through October ozone season now meeting the latest ozone standard, with the vast majority of days meeting the 1997 and 2008 standards. And that progress is depicted here in the maps of the Valley on the bottom. And then it's also shown, I have another slide as well, showing some of the progress. But your board has adopted numerous attainment plans and control strategies with over 670 generations of rules and regulations put in place that have reduced stationary source ozone and ozone forming NOx emissions by over 90%, as shown with the graph on the slide. Similarly, on the state level, the California Air Resources Board has adopted numerous mobile source emissions controls, and this combined effort represents the nation's toughest emissions control program. We also operate strong incentive programs with over $6.2 billion in public and private investment. And through these efforts, ozone has decreased significantly, as shown with this graphic on the slide. The dashed lines on the bottom indicate the levels of the 8-hour ozone standards of 84 ppb, 75 ppb, and 70 ppb. So through all of these regulations that have been implemented by both the district and CARB, we're making significant progress towards attainment of these very challenging standards. So we're here today to talk about contingency measures. I know I've come and spoke to your board a number of times about this topic, but today we're focused specifically on the ozone standards. So because we are designated as extreme non-attainment, we have to meet a number of plan requirements. One of those is contingency measures. These are measures that are additional measures not existing that are put into place and triggered upon a failure to make progress toward attainment of the standard or attain a standard. So specifically for the 2008 8-hour ozone standard, EPA approved our 2016 ozone plan in 2019. We subsequently amended District Rule 4601, architectural coatings, to include a contingency provision within the rule that would remove a small container exemption for specific specialty coatings if one of those triggers were to happen that I just mentioned. Due to litigation, EPA withdrew their approval of this measure as meeting the contingency measure requirements, which has triggered sanctions and federal implementation plan clocks here in the Valley. For the 2015 ozone standard, the 2022 ozone plan was adopted by your board in 2022. And due to needed EPA guidance and the litigation and complexities around contingency measures, The plan did not identify contingency measures at the time. However, EPA recently came out with their draft guidance in March of 2023. And so because this guidance is out there, it establishes a path forward for us to address this. A little bit more on the sanctions and FIP clocks that were triggered by that November 2022 action. So in November, EPA disapproved our contingency measures for this standard. In March of this year, we published our proposed package ahead of this governing board meeting today for public review. And then sanctions, because of that disapproval, would kick in on May 2nd for permit offsets, and then November 2nd for highway sanctions. And November 2nd, EPA would also be obligated to promulgate a FIP for the valley. So the action today before you would address this issue, and these clocks would be stopped following EPA approval of this package as meeting contingency requirements. So we've been working with CARB to put together this package. It includes a full analysis demonstrating the stringency of our district and CARB regulations. We have looked at every single rule and source, building on analyses conducted as part of our most recent PN 2.5 and ozone plans. Additionally, as you know, EPA recently proposed to approve our PN 2.5 contingency SIP revision that your board adopted last year. And so this approval serves as the foundation for our package before you this morning. Through the evaluation, we identified limited opportunities for feasible contingency measures. We did have extensive interaction and collaboration with CARB and EPA on the proposed package and the measures that are included. And so the package before you includes a couple of things. Already adopted contingency measures, the first of which is within District Rule 4601, like I mentioned, our rule for architectural coatings. The second is CARB's smog check contingency measure, which they adopted last year. The package also includes a number of new contingency measure commitments to amend district coding rules to include contingency measures. And this would include lowering VOC limits for limited coding categories or removal of exemptions. And these commitments are based on our evaluation. We identified some lower limits within other region rules. So the specific commitments are listed on the slide. There's 5 coding rules that we would be committing to amend. As I mentioned, these opportunities are based on lower limits in other regions. And so we did have extensive coordination with the Coding Association to talk about the feasibility of these. And so we don't anticipate any significant impact. As I mentioned, we engage with the Coding Association. So what's before you this morning is just commitments to amend these rules. We would be going through a full public engagement process prior to returning to your board with the proposed amendments. We would be amending the rules within 1 year of the effective date of EPA's approval of these commitments. And the measures similar to the Clean Air Act contingency requirements, they would be triggered upon a failure to meet reasonable further progress towards attainment of the standards or attained by their applicable attainment dates. Through the package, we did look at every source of emissions under the district and CARB's authority. The reduction from the commitments that are listed in the package have not been quantified, although they will result in additional VOC reductions to meet the contingency measure reduction targets. And beyond these commitments, we did not identify any additional opportunities under our jurisdiction. I did want to mention that in EPA's draft guidance and historically with contingency measures, EPA is not obligated to put contingency measures forward. But given the significance of their sources in the San Joaquin Valley, we just continue to urge EPA through potential regulatory opportunities or incentive-based opportunities that they really need to be doing their fair share. Just given the stringency of our regulations, it's difficult to identify opportunities specifically for contingency measures to hold back given the air quality issues within our region. So with that, there's a couple of recommendations before you this morning, and I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Any questions for Emily? Okay. Dr. Pacheco-Warner?
Yeah, I think it would also be helpful for the board to know that a little bit more about your engagement already with EPA on some of this in terms of their liking where we're going with
Willingness
this.
to accept?
Yes.
Yeah, maybe I can expand a little bit on that. Emily, feel free to jump in. But we have certainly been engaging for some time with EPA on this topic, and it actually goes back over a year now. You know, in looking at the same set of issues for PM 2.5 and working through the March guidance that came out about a year ago now, a little bit over a year ago. Last year, a lot of that work has been the foundation, and this has been, you know, basically in front of us for review. So there has been a lot of engagement in terms of answering questions and you know, basically looking through the guidance and making sure that interpretation of it is you know, sound. A lot of that, like Emily mentioned, basically was validated, you know, with that proposed approval that came out from EPA at the end of last year. So we do feel confident that that collective work, and as Emily also mentioned, just to add a little bit more, CARB has also been, this is actually a joint package that you know, was developed jointly with CARB, and so they also very closely reviewed, you know, the guidance and the package before you today. So definitely want to just validate that that collective effort and just express confidence in, you know, basically meeting the requirements. Of course, once it goes to EPA, you know, it really is ultimately, you know, up to EPA to review this and ultimately take action on it. But just wanted to make sure it was clear that there was certainly interagency, you know, dialogue and, you know, collaboration going on to help navigate. We're actually leading the country on this issue. I also want to note, you know, that we're the only area in the nation who's actually put together an approvable contingency measure package, you know, coming out of all the litigation against EPA that resulted in them having to go back and redo the guidance. So I think that's, we're certainly leading, you know, once again, nationally.
Thank you. Any other questions? No, let's go to public comment.
Okay, do we have any public comments in Bakersfield?
No public comment in Bakersfield?
Thank you. Any public comment in Modesto?
No public comment in Modesto.
Thank you. Any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment on this item? Seeing none and no online comments.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion, Shockley, second. Roll call, please.
Okay, Mr. Couch,
Yes.
Ms. Escutio Brayton, Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. McCauley,
Yes.
Mr. Mendez,
Yes.
Dr. Pacheco Warner,
Yes.
Mr. Preciado,
Aye.
Mr. Reyna,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Dr. Sheriff,
Aye.
Ms. Schicklin,
Aye.
Ms. Nguyen,
Yes.
Mr. Chiesa.
Aye.
Through the chair, motion passes.
Thank you very much, Emily. It was pretty easy, huh? Easy on you.
Good job, Emily.
On to item 12, the verbal report from the Air Resources Board, Dr. Pacheco Warner.
Thank you, Chair. As I mentioned earlier during the CAC report, that I am working to ensure that we have more opportunities for community engagement on these various emerging implementations for the different truck rules. So that is ongoing. I have also been meeting with stakeholders from all different parts of the spectrum that implicate the Valley or are based in the Valley around the low carbon fuel standard, which is set to go to our board this year. So lots of engagement with folks on that front, and looking forward if anybody else, you know, obviously has would like to engage on that topic. Happy to meet with them as well. And that's it for today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Executive Director report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll keep this pretty quick. Just a couple of items I think of interest to the board on the state budget discussions. You know, we are working still very closely with partners to understand, you know, where that's heading and advocate on our air quality priorities in that process. It does only seem to get worse the more analysis comes out and the deficit, you know, is further sort of developed. So we just wanted to note that, you know, we're working towards the May revise governor's May revised version of the budget, and I don't have much to report on that yet, but it is, getting really interesting in Sacramento on that front. The other thing I'll just note, and just wanted to give a shout out to Jamie and her team, and then obviously the board as a whole for supporting and helping develop and just continually improving the Healthier Living Schools program. There was actually a really nice profile of the program in the California Special Districts Association publication that some of you may get. I'm not sure if you're on other boards, but there's a 2-page spread actually on that Healthier Living Schools program. Happy to share this and have you take a look at that. So great work on that, Jamie and her team, and really the schools just really love that partnership and appreciate them being willing to continually engage. We have over 1,000 schools that are partners actually in that program, so it's really worthwhile effort. I want to also note that we've submitted a couple of entries or submitted a couple of entries into the Central California Public Relations Society of American Annual Awards competition. I think I got that right. And we were just informed that one of the two has won. We don't know exactly which one it is, but there will be an event coming up where that will be unveiled. So I think some of the outreach work that, again, the board is always very involved in is going to be highlighted as part of that award. And we'll come back to the board and share more of that with you as we learn more about that. I'll turn it back to you. Thank you very much for any questions or comments.
Any questions? Okay, board member comments. I'm going to go to Modesto first. That's okay. You have any comments? How about down in Kern County, Bakersfield? Good. Anyone left or right?
Yeah, I want to.
Okay, please.
What?
Yeah, you actually hit on, the contingency deal that we were the only ones, but I think we're getting down to just me, you, and Tom. I don't know who else went to that congressional hearing that Syed did, but it's always good in a congressional hearing to definitely be the smartest guy in the room. And that was Syed that day. I mean, it was not, it was a little bit shocking, but that, the rest of the country was at a lower level of knowledge than him. And the thing is, he left us with a great team. I mean, this team that runs the Air District today is basically, you guys are all descendants of Syed, and I just, the rest of the board needs to realize, how great you guys really are compared to the rest of the country, not the state of California, the rest of the country. And thank you for doing everything you guys do.
Makes you disciples.
Yes.
I'm saying.
It is.
It's really good. Comments to my right? So I got here a little early this morning, just by accident. There was no traffic. And I have to shout out to the silent heroes, the IT department. You don't realize how much time and effort goes in. I appreciate to make sure that there's no delays, that Bakersfield, Modesto, and ourselves are all connected, plus phone lines and everything else. Appreciate all you do. Again, thank you. If there's nothing else, you're looking like you have something. There's nothing else for the good of the order. This meeting's going to be adjourned. We do have a closed session.
Well, it'll be adjourned after closed
Yes.
session. But yeah, there is a closed session item, and we do need to take public comment on item number 15.
Okay. Are there any members of the public in Modesto that would like to comment on item 15 for the closed session?
No public comments from Modesto.
Thank you. Bakersfield, do you have any members of the public that would like to comment on the closed session item?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment on this? Seeing none and no online comments.
Okay, thank you. And we will have closed session here in this room. We will not be moving out of this room for closed session.
Somebody's comments, staff's heads are so big.
Okay.
You will report out afterwards, correct?
And I will be reporting out afterwards. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Let me go unlock it.
Right, there you go.
Okay, the board met in closed session on the Central California Environmental Justice Network versus CARB action, item 15 on the board agenda. A summary of any reportable action taken in closed session will be provided to the clerk of the board, which will be available to the public upon request, and thereafter the board adjourned the meeting at 11:59.